The video shows a city where there are many tall skyscrapers. Between them you can see the silhouette of a man jumping from roof to roof. This man who loves to change costumes and is now flying in the air is truly Spider-Man. The guy sits relaxed on the couch and watches this video and notes that the hero seems to be chasing someone, and he's not sure if these are special effects. At the same time, the TV is turned on, where there is news broadcasting that recently abnormal weather conditions have been observed in some regions, which is why our hero is dissatisfied. He continues to sit on the phone, when suddenly a voice comes from somewhere asking if the guy wants power. The young man begins to get nervous and drops of sweat appear on his face from fear and surprise. He shouts that everyone, except the hikikomori from Japanese legends, dreams of being strong. The voice from above is ready to fulfill the wish, but the guy is very surprised and does not understand what kind of power we are talking about. Our hero is sucked into some kind of magical portal, which then narrows to a point and sparkles brightly. Finally, the guy woke up and saw that he was in a strange environment and an unfamiliar voice was heard, which spoke about the degree of fusion and congratulated Master Lone. The guy is disoriented and does not understand anything that is being said to him, so he is very dissatisfied. He cannot understand all these incomprehensible events that are now flashing before his eyes, whether they are true or fiction. The first frame is the events of September 11, 2020, when the ancient red dragon allegedly invaded. Then November 14, 2020, when the Naga clan declared its power over New Zealand. The next date, May 7, 2021, marks the descent of the gods of the world of Pulo to Earth, after which they merged with the planet. After all these shots, the guy understands and becomes more serious, because these are not just random visions. While he realized that he was seeing the future of humanity, the flow of the portal carried him to the point of arrival. A status window appears before the hero's eyes, where his various skills and characteristics are indicated, which is why he was incredibly surprised. Then various missions appeared, and the guy began to consider with surprise what tasks awaited him. But, after reading them carefully, he became embarrassed, because the missions were, in his opinion, ridiculous and not suitable for the master, as he had previously been called. The hero sat down and began to think about the fact that the power of kinship is activated in a completely different way and certainly not by those shameful tasks specified in the missions. Again, an unfamiliar voice says that the newly minted master must overcome his shyness, because this is the only way to activate his capabilities and gain respect. The guy sighed heavily, gathered his will into his hands and decided that he was ready to let go of prejudice for the sake of strength. Events move to the kitchen, where our hero is standing, who receives a message on his phone that he is being asked to cook something to eat. He started cooking and, while chopping the ingredients, thought that if everything he saw was true, then humanity had no weapons to defend against these creatures. The guy was also confused and puzzled that he would have to carry out those fake missions. Having prepared the food, he set the table and instructed his brother to clean up and behave neatly in private at home, and he himself left. The long-haired boy looked out from behind the door and replied that he knew about the rules of behavior. After walking just a few steps, our hero already receives a message from his younger brother Kin and thinks that he is already looking for him. As it turned out, the guy wanted to write about the need to remove stitches after the operation, but this message did not reach Kin. He thought a little about the current situation, and then got angry at his not even his own brother for being capricious, withdrawn and having problems with gender perception. I immediately remembered my father's words that even without a blood connection they are one family and the problems of sexual perception and autism of the younger brother are serious, but by saving money they will definitely solve everything. Remembering all this, the guy completely lost his mood because of his brother and regrets their relationship. After this, our hero quickly took a taxi to his planned destination, namely a plastic surgery clinic. When he got out of the car, someone called him, which he had to pay attention to. As it turned out, it was a gallant florist with a rose who offers the guy to buy a bouquet for the lady. The guy notices the coincidence with the shameful missions and perceives this as a direct hint to the need to complete the tasks. In the end, he bought gorgeous roses, but this did not improve his mood, because the hero does not like the responsibility that was entrusted to him. While the guy was looking at the purchased flowers, a man ran past him like lightning. It seems that our hero recognized this amazing man in shorts and a robe, but he told the guy not to tell anyone that he had seen him. The guy grabbed the fugitive by the shoulder, because this is the doctor who should remove his stitches. At the clinic, the nurse overhears them talking about some girl who helped, and Gu Xiaoming for whom flowers were apparently bought. She is sitting on the phone, and in her mind she only has the question of why someone is making quite a lot of noise on the street. It seems that our hero pulled himself together and finally came up to confess his love for his object of sympathy and give a bouquet. It was this nurse from the clinic who turned out to be this person, but, unfortunately, she didn't even recognize the guy. Thus, he completed his first mission and began activating the kinship with Master Lone, after which he went outside and met a suspicious group of people who were looking for Lu Junai. Our hero tensed up and didn't want to get involved in this, because he knows this person, so he skillfully didn't show it and got by saying only about the operation in this clinic. The woman who is looking for Lu Junai starts screaming and tells her story that she came here for breast augmentation, but not even a few days after the operation, hair began to grow all over her skin, and our hero thought that maybe the woman was also able to activate some kind of superpower, because this is a certain anomaly. Our hero decided that one of the abilities from his arsenal would be suitable for this situation, namely analysis. His research on the woman gave him a result and he learned that she was Wen Xian, who was 24 years old and was in the process of activating a blood bond with a martial barbarian woman. He calmed down, because it is not Lu Jinyi's fault that a woman has excessive hair, because it is simply the activation of superpowers. The guy decided that he needed to be careful, because he realized that even ordinary passers-by can have superpowers. He decided that the time had come to escape from this situation, so he concentrated on further action. With a bouquet in his hands, our hero made a lightning-fast dash and disappeared from the encirclement, although they actively wanted to detain him. While he was running away into the sunset and in a pleasant atmosphere, the guy walks and reflects on how lucky he is to have the ability to quickly escape. The guy decided that it would be better to move on when the whole situation calmed down a little. But suddenly something falls sharply near him with a piercing scream, from which the young man is quite frightened. A pink-haired girl lies in front of him, and the guy asks her condition, but she begins to tell something about her family and about the ficus. Because of the girl's strange appearance, he thought that perhaps she could be an enemy. She continues to lie and tries to collect herself after a strong fall, but a strange note of request can be read in her gaze. The girl jumps up and asks our hero for help, which consists of robbing the guy, which he was surprised at. She begins to boast that she has superpowers and is now at the maximum level. Because of her ability to analyze, the guy sees that she is really only 15 years old, but the girl already has the status of a 4th-level robber and her name is Qin Yu. The guy warns her that she doesn't need to tell everyone about her abilities, and says that even he can be a bad person, but the girl doesn't believe him and offers to exchange honing her skills for meeting a beauty. The main character, realizing that he does not want to get involved in the fight, tells the robber that a calm robbery would be much better. And suddenly a new task comes, which includes the difference between an oath and his words, that is, to prevent the thief from robbing him 5 times, in return he will receive a list of Master Lone's special skills. The guy is embarrassed that the task has come right now, and at this time the girl, without even hearing a word from her victim, is already beginning the process of improving her own skills. The robber concentrated all her skill and accelerated to deliver the first blow to her opponent. But luck was not on her side and our hero, with lightning speed, intercepts the girl's hand. She was very unhappy with the resistance to her robbery, and the guy, trying to complete a new mission, says that apparently there was a small misunderstanding. While the girl was angry, our hero explained to her the idea that the situation needed to be changed, because it was inconvenient to just take things out of your pocket. Qin Yu agrees to this schedule of things, so she tells her victim to come back and she will come up from behind. The robber has already reached into the victim's pocket, but he again sharply grabs her hand, continuing to fulfill his goal. The girl's nerves can no longer stand it, and the guy explains his actions by saying that he only wanted to remind that the money is not in the right pocket, but in the left. Our hero successfully prevents theft 2 more times. Unaware of the tasks, Qin Yu can no longer withstand this mockery of her, and the main character successfully completes the task. The thief, already in tears, begs the guy to play along with her, because she might lose her robbery skills, so he finally agrees to help the girl, because the mission has already been completed. In the end, the robber managed to rob the guy, which made her incredibly happy. As it turned out, the guy had underpants with a picture of a bear in his pocket, which is why Qin Yu was very indignant and called him a pervert. After this situation, the guy decided that training would be enough for today, and the girl at that moment stood in a stupor. Rabbits with a bear quickly fly right into our hero's face. The girl goes and asks the guy to add her to the vesh so that he can introduce him to the same beauty, and at this time the guy notices that the robber has stolen his phone. Chin-yu quickly gives the phone to the guy and goes, saying goodbye to their next meeting. She finally smiles sweetly at him and deftly begins to jump from building to building. But suddenly our hero hears the sound of a fall and screams from the young robber that it is slippery there. He saw the nickname of his new contact on his phone and rated it as very daring. After all these events, a gift set of beginner materials became available to our hero as a reward for completing tasks. Using the menu, he successfully created a basic item, namely a ring, from the received resources. It glowed brightly and flew over the guy's hand, which he watched carefully and in surprise. Now in his hands was an ornament that added points to the blood and perception charms, and also had an additional move, Thick Mist, which could be used 3 times a day. The guy was happy with his first creation, although he understood that it was too early to talk about any success. Events move to the room with Chin-yu and her older sister, where the younger one is reprimanded because she doesn't think about her safety at all, while she doesn't regret it at all, but only tells her sister that she met a handsome guy. The girl says that she saw how cute the guy was and told him everything, which is why the older sister begins to get even angrier. The younger one assures that a guy with a bear on his shorts definitely cannot be a thief. The sister completely breaks down screaming, because she cannot believe that Chin-yu trusted the man who showed her his panties. Events return again to the protagonist's gaming space, where he notes that recently there have been a lot of people with superpowers, so he decides to better study the master's abilities. Before leaving, the main character decides to improve the technique of summoning a magical pet. At this moment, a message from Xian comes to his phone asking that the young man allegedly has a girlfriend. The younger brother noticed that first our hero had a bouquet of roses, then a wedding ring on his ring finger, completely indicating that the girl's absence was a complete deception. The guy didn't even have time to explain anything when Xian had already blacklisted him, but anyway, sooner or later he will calm down and unblock his older brother. But still, he accepted that the situation had gone far and he needed to remove all suspicion from himself as quickly as possible. Our hero goes out into the street and walks happily. Now events are transferred to another person, who behaves with restraint and reports that he will not sing today, only talk, and notes that his brother has a girlfriend. This is Xian, who is worried that his older brother will leave him for love, and you can see that he appears in front of the audience as a girl. He also talks about how all this time his brother thinks he's a guy, to which fans react very differently. Again the events are transferred to the city, public transport and stops are visible. There is a quarrel between people over a seat on the bus, and the guy claims that he was standing first and does not want to sit in front. The girl shouts that he himself complained that he could get seasick, and in front there is just a place by the window. The main character and other passengers watch in embarrassment the quarrel, which cannot subside. Meanwhile, the guy has on his mind that he gets along well with people, especially those who have superpowers, so an interesting opinion comes to his mind. He guessed that the special quality of attracting people with abilities was activated by itself, and now the guy doesn't know how to deal with it, because he doesn't want to be a magnet for everyone around him. The young man drives further and eventually notices that a slender pink-haired girl has boarded the bus. He recognized this beauty and called her name, namely Zhang Yingluo. Then the gaze falls on the robber girl Chin-yu, whom our hero met yesterday. The girl looks around the bus for an empty seat and notices it next to our hero, which makes him a little scared. The current neighbors of the site are witnessing a fight over the site that is still ongoing. Chin-yu notices his new acquaintance, whom he calls handsome with a bear on his shorts, and is glad that they have finally met. The older sister was immediately wary because this was the same pervert, and the guy was very scared that the thief had told absolutely everything that happened yesterday. The guy immediately became embarrassed, because it seemed that they misunderstood each other, but he wanted to explain this situation. Zhang Yingluo turned her head and looked at the guy seriously. For some reason, she suddenly changed her mind and said that she completely believed our hero. The guy realized that this was the effect of his new ability and was embarrassed, because he didn't like this skill. Suddenly he comes up with a task that involves confessing his love to 3 bus passengers before the transport arrives at its final destination. The guy was scared by such a mission, although he considered himself handsome, but did not believe that he could complete it. At the same time, the reward for the task was quite generous and necessary, because access to the lost paradise is quite valuable, so the hero was very thoughtful. His neighbor is worried whether the guy is feeling well, because he looks strange. He looks sharply at Zhang Luo and says that his heart beats rather next to the girl and he has feelings for her. Qin Yu is embarrassed and does not understand at what point her sister managed to get along with the handsome guy. He abruptly turns to Yu Yu and confesses his love to her, but the guy feels as uncomfortable and disgusting as possible. She is very surprised and does not understand why he seems insignificant to her, but her heart began to beat quickly after the words he said. Next, our hero wants to quickly find a girl from the foreign language club so that she can be the last victim of a declaration of love. He writes to her that he just lied to all the previous girls and loves only her. This girl starts yelling at the whole bus that Su Nan just confessed his love to her. Finally, our hero completes his difficult task and receives his long-awaited reward. Since the guy completed the mission, he decided it was time to eliminate his superpowers for charm. An enraged Zhang Luo asks Su Nan what he just did, causing him to become nervous. She is angry because she thinks that the guy decided to mock her and her sister, and he understands that the girl also has the ability to intimidate people. The guy is trying to get out of it by allegedly losing a bet to his friend, but the girl doesn't believe it and asks again for the friend's name. Our hero replies that the friend's name is Lu Junai. She remembers this doctor and believes that he is a complete charlatan. Yu Yu confirms this and says that he pulled out her wisdom teeth for half a day and in the end it didn't work out. Su Nan is surprised and asks if they were at Lu Junyi's clinic, to which the girl replies that this hospital is close to their home, so when Yu Yu fell, they went there, but they were unable to set her wrist. The guy is tense, because he begins to make a connection between the fact that everyone around him has abilities and all the residents of the city are connected with this doctor. Why does the bus suddenly stop in the middle of the forest, as if something is preventing it from passing? Bus passengers began to be indignant and ask why the transport had stopped, but it turned out that the road was blocked by the military. Zhang Luo went to ask the driver who was going on, to which he replied that it was impossible to drive here today. She realized that it was not far from the water, but still the location of the student camp needed to be changed. Finally, everyone reached their destination and set up a tent city. The main character stands at the newly erected tent with the headman and praises his assistant. Su Nian is very grateful for the help, and the headman claims that everyone should still help each other. After the latest events, all the guys avoid our hero, so he is glad that Akuan is there. The elder abruptly decided to ask Su Nan a question and asked the guy if he knew the character from the D&D world. Therefore, the strange question made the guy tense, because it concerns his superpowers. But Akuan just wanted to show videos related to D&D and talk about the changes in it. He said that on the darknet people call themselves level 2 bards. Pretending that nothing was happening, Su Nan accidentally asked the headman what kind of character he would like to be so that he would not suspect our hero of anything. And Kun said that if he had a choice, he would absolutely inherit the profession of a fighting monk and go bald. Next to the guys who were actively talking, a cute guy with glasses and a tablet in his hands appears. Su Nan asks if the guy has Xin Air on his tablet, to which he is indignant because he doesn't understand how he even knows her. The guy gets upset and claims that his Xin Air is not at all like other girls and will not fall in love with the handsome guy. He begins to threaten our hero that the girl has a dangerous brother and Su Nan needs to stay away from her. While the students were setting up their camp, it was deep night. Su Nan plays werewolf with 3 girls. They once again begin to praise the guy that he has a high level of intelligence and beauty. The guy decided to leave the game and go for a walk. As it turned out, he was fulfilling his new task, during which he had to deceive his opponents in the game without anyone noticing, and he could not even think that he would go this far down the path of shame. Su Nan walks calmly through the forest at night, and then Yu Yu, who was just looking for a guy with her sister, suddenly scares him from the bushes. He doesn't understand what's happening, and the girl herself doesn't know, because Zhang Luo only managed to warn her about the meeting in the indicated place, so she needs to hurry there. The question arose in the guy's head as to why they suddenly needed his help. Upon the young man's arrival, Zhang Luo began to tell her that a very dangerous fugitive had been spotted in the vicinity of Xiahewen Park. In general, students should immediately leave the territory, but it is already late, because the bus has left, so they will wait until dawn. Because of this situation, it was decided that everyone would take turns on guard duty at night to protect the camp. The students drew up a schedule of shifts at the post and handed it to Su Nan for review. The headman said goodbye to the guy and said that they would see each other a little later. For some unknown reason, the head of the foreign language club turns to our hero, which is why he begins to get a little nervous. It turned out that the girl guessed that Su Nan actually had abilities. The guy was immediately taken aback by Zhang Yingluo's such directness. With a smile on her lips, the girl tells him not to pretend that he doesn't understand anything, because everything became clear on the bus. But she didn't have anything bad on her mind, she just wanted to warn Su Nan about the danger, because the criminal most likely has abilities. The guy was glad that she had completely figured out his features and said that it was necessary to disguise the features of the master's origin. He doesn't understand why she stayed in the camp. Does she really want to face such a dangerous criminal? Zhang Yingluo explains this by saying that she wants to find out if there is anyone cooler and stronger. She says that she already has level 3 and is a warrior of the Temple of Confucius. The girl suddenly remembered that she called our hero a bard, so he had to get a musical instrument, to which he jokes that he can whistle with his lips. Su Nan went to a secluded place and put on his best equipment, leaving himself with another 4 shame points. While no one is near him, the guy decided to launch the Lost Paradise that he recently received. He confidently presses a special button, after which it makes a characteristic sound. Su Nan is informed that the first level of the Lost Paradise has been activated and is warned that the first time he gets there, the beginner's insurance will be activated. The hero's transportation was completed and he arrived at the desired coordinate somewhere in the forest. He opens his eyes, in which notes of amazement and nervousness are read before a special test. Su Nan is informed that he has found himself in the formidable forest of Ai Kusun, but the guy is not at all surprised by the location of the Lost Paradise, because it is not at all different from an ordinary forest. Our hero was glad that he was provided with a map and decided to go to the hut, which was abandoned by his predecessor and is located a couple of kilometers from here. The guy realized that he needed to be very careful, because in such a place there were many threats. He is haunted by the thought that he needs to be on guard, but the guy still takes the first steps towards his goal. Without incident, Su Nan reaches the hut of his predecessor Ai Kusun, hidden among this forest. The previous master Luan was very strong, became a real legend and decided to somehow pay for his strength, so at each level of the Lost Paradise he built huts for selected people. The hero doesn't believe that he can just go inside like that, and at that moment he hears someone nearby arguing about the methods of eating nuts. In shock, Sun Yen watches 2 squirrels argue about how to eat nuts fried with salt or honey. He wanted to use his analysis skill on these animals, but he fails, which means that they are much stronger than the guy. Suddenly one of the squirrels turns to the guy and asks him to judge them and choose salt or honey. The animals began to look at Su Nan more threateningly and joked that they were vegetarians and he could relax. The guy takes out a jar of his mother's pepper paste, but he's not even sure it's vegetarian food. He put her on the ground, after which the squirrels pounced on her and began to quickly eat. The animals, with a happy twinkle in their eyes, let the guy through and say that the house is now his. Su Nan realized that this was one of the checks and mentally thanked his mother for the pasta. The guy thought that there were most likely some messages hidden in the hut. He found the diary of his predecessor, in which he wrote that the biggest mistake in his life was to believe some unknown evil person, so our hero understands that the master was deceived by someone. The real meaning of the message was that you do not need to develop your physical form, but only charisma and intelligence, or the activation of the connection with the master will be cancelled. As it turned out, the predecessor left some jewelry and a bag for storing things for Su Nan. He also prepared several gold bars and a bag of pearls and ifrit for making magical equipment. And the last thing is a white scroll that may be useful to our hero. In addition to these jewels, there are 2 more treasures that can only be obtained after passing subsequent tests. To do this, you need to look for them around the hut. So Su Nan began to do this and walked further along the corridors of the house. He opened the back door and was surprised to see that there was only a field beyond. The guy came down the steps and saw good magical equipment levitating in the air. The shocked guy came even closer to the found treasure to take a closer look. It turned out that the first relic is a sinless staff, which has pretty good damage characteristics and an interesting spell. I didn't do it on purpose. The second was the iron hand, which has no special needs for exploitation and knows how to repel evil spirits. The next test to obtain the weapon involves landing a precise hit on a pumpkin with standard speed and accuracy, which our hero blithely agrees to. With enthusiasm, Su-nan began to quickly and accurately hit the watermelons with his new staff. Finally, he interrupted all his goals, so the task was successfully completed. Despite the fact that the pumpkin was not ordinary, but charming, the guy easily completed the mission and was pleased with his work. The squirrels even came to congratulate him and confirm that he is now the owner of this weapon. The animals say that the last test is aimed at testing the guy's fighting ability, that is, he must defeat the creature from the starry world that they will summon. After completing this task, Su-nan will receive the final treasure, namely the affinity fruit. But the guy got nervous, because he saw a creature from the star world in his knowledge, where these monsters destroyed the earth, so Su-nan expects a fierce fight. By activating his shield ability, he confirmed that he was ready to take on the challenge. The beasts finished the summoning process, followed by a bright flash as the limestone warrior was finally summoned and ready to fight. A huge dinosaur skeleton appears before the main character, glowing with blue fire and looking as dangerous as possible. But Su-nan did not lose his passion, and was even glad that he would be able to fight a worthy opponent. The limestone warrior tried to attack the guy, but he was not taken aback and immediately blocked the blow with the help of a shield. Suddenly he notices that something is wrong with the monster, because the skeleton began to disintegrate into individual bones. The guy started yelling because he thought it was just a toy that quickly broke. The squirrels praised Su-nanza for his endurance and speed, and for this our hero can now receive his last reward. After this, the guy immediately decided to see his new capabilities, so he quickly cast the fire hand spell. To his surprise, the flame began to grow with incredible strength and speed, which made our hero very surprised. Subsequently, the entire field was already engulfed in flames. The squirrels watched this fire, and Su-nan was shocked at how strong his abilities were now. The animals began to rejoice that they would finally be able to leave this place, so the guy realized that the tests were so easy for this very reason. Usually, limestone warriors have an extreme level of strength, and under normal conditions, the guy was unlikely to be able to defeat him so easily. It seems that AI Kusen's things are not in demand, so no one goes to these places and the squirrels sit alone. The animals joyfully said goodbye to our hero and warned that next time there would be no beginner's insurance and it might not be so easy to find them. Suddenly, a bright flash flashed before Su-nan's eyes. The long-awaited kinship fruit falls into his hands, which will give the hero an additional master level point. The guy looks at him and thinks that by eating the fruit he will improve his strength and gain new abilities, so now is the time for this, because a fugitive criminal is wandering nearby. Our hero concentrates and prepares to gain power and skills. After absorbing the affinity fruit, his gaze shows more confidence, because now his Luoan master level has reached level 2. Su-nan was outraged that the fruit only increased his own strength, even though he was a master. But the guy notices that although he has not received any new abilities, he already has enough skills in his arsenal that need to be explored. The main character decided that it was time to return to reality. He stood alone in an empty dark forest, fireflies flying around him. Suddenly, his phone reminded of itself and announced a new message, which made Su-nan afraid. Taking the gadget in his hands, he noticed that almost 2 hours had passed, so there were a lot of missed messages from high on the screen. Messages appeared on the screen with information about the thief, whose name, according to the text, is Wu Ku. The man is 170 tall, bald, dressed in a black t-shirt and tights, and has a mole near his eye. A guy with a flashlight in his hands scans the area, thinking about the information provided about the thief, but at that moment someone is watching him from the shadows. At the same time, Zhang Luo is thinking about where Su-nan went, when suddenly the phone rings in her pocket. The alleged criminal is visible on the screen, and behind the scenes the voice of the main character asks if this is the man he needs, to which the girl responds approvingly and warns the guy to stay away from the man. She tells him to hide, and Su-nan asks about calling the police, but Zhang Luo orders him to just wait for her. The guy begins to get nervous, because next to him there is a dangerous criminal who may also have superpowers. A young man decides to check the area for danger with the help of a mythical creature. He casts the magic warning spell to search for threats. Su-nan approaches the running thief and shines a flashlight on him, but remains ready, because his accomplices may be nearby. The husband is not in the best condition, so the guy can calmly carry out an analysis that refutes speculation that the thief belongs to warrior monks and shows that he is a member of the Black Blades gang, has level 4 and is dying at the moment. The main character had already heard about the members of this group that they kill their own for fun, so Wu-Ku is a very dangerous person. Since the thief was already dying anyway, Su Lin decided to calmly wait for help, when suddenly he received a message. A new mission was sent, which is to make Wu-Ku suffer for the next 30 minutes and only then die, but if he dies earlier, the task will not be counted. The guy was very indignant at such a task, because he was ready to save the man, but watching his torment was too much for Su Nan, but because of the reward of 5 shame points and the instant explosion spell, he thought about it. The guy thinks that if you carefully monitor Wu-Ku, you can get a generous reward, and besides, it won't be a bad idea to teach the terrible thief a lesson. He saw a bullet wound on the bandit's body and concluded that a level 4 black blade could not resist a firearm. After 25 minutes of observation, the guy saw that Wu-Ku's vitality had reached a minimum, so he would not be able to live to see 30 minutes. The main character had to use instant healing and it cost 2 shame points. He was dissatisfied, because treating the thief was unpleasant. The man gained strength and spoke to Su Nan, asking if the guy had just healed him and if the guy was a master. Because of Wu-Ku's consciousness, our hero began to panic. The thief doesn't understand anything, because the guy just tried to heal him himself, and now he suddenly asks why he came to his senses. Su Nan decides to hit the man on the head several times with a flashlight so that he lies unconscious again. Suddenly, Yu appears from the bushes, rejoicing that she has finally found Su Nan. She encourages the guy and says that he is dealing with the thief correctly. Our hero went too far with the beating of Wu-Ku, so he got a little smeared in blood and appeared in front of the girl in this form, and at this time the man's vitality again reached a minimum. Realizing that he was playing too much, the guy immediately became embarrassed and didn't know what to say to Yu. The mission was completed, but Su Nan became nervous and wanted to explain everything to his friend. The guy tried to explain this situation as a desire to practice his healing skills, but Zhang Luo was still picky and noted that from the outside it looked very strange. The girl looked at Su Nan seriously and thought that the guy's calm and friendly appearance was just a mask. After that, she decided to turn to what turned out to be a living thief, who was looking at her warily. Zhang Luo sat down and asked Wu-Ku where some portal was located. The husband was angry, because he had an entrance ticket, but promised to thank him generously if she allowed him to pass. The girl put him in his place and threatened Wu-Ku that she would give him a good thrashing, after which the thief would definitely not come out alive. She also said that she would ask Su Nan to knock the wind out of the man, which made him very scared, because now he considered our hero a psycho. Watching this conversation, the guy did not understand its meaning at all and what portal we were talking about. Still, Wu-Ku decided to confess and pointed the way to the portal, which ran along the stream to a fork, where he had to turn right, go to the willow and turn left, then go through 3 forks and get to the right place, as was said on the darknet. Zhang Luo turns around and leaves, ordering the thief to be tied to a tree, and he is indignant, because the girl promised to hit him on the head. She turns up with a serious expression and asks if anything was really promised, and assures that they are all ordinary students here who cannot kill people. Wu-Kyo begins to act up and shout that he doesn't want to go to the police, so they quickly return. Moving away from that place, the sisters began to actively communicate and Yu asked if it was scary to leave the bandit there, but the elder sister assured that his strength was 0 and it was unlikely that he would be able to get out, and Su Nan at that moment did not even understand where they were going. Everyone leaves. Suddenly, from the bushes, someone spoke to a group of students and warned of danger on the route they had chosen. As it turned out, there is nothing wrong, because this is the elder Akun, who declares that the thief ruined the code. The girls asked the guy if he was also one of the chosen ones, but he replied that not yet, but he was interested in this and was very surprised that there were chosen ones in his circle. Finally, Sun Yen dared and intervened in the conversation to ask where everyone was going and what they were going to do. And Kun explained that a certain spellcaster posted information on the darknet that there is a portal near Xiahewan Park that can take you to the world of Pulo, and noted that only a select few can go there with a ticket, which costs a lot. The headman continues to argue that the world of Pulo and the earth have not yet merged into one, so the people who opened this portal must have extraordinary equipment, the guy again says that this is very dangerous. Zhang Yingluo reacts calmly to the warning and expresses his desire to fight the real chosen one. She decided that Yu Yu was still weak, and Su Nian was suitable for the role of just an assistant. The headman asks our hero with interest whether he is a master or a bard, to which the guy says that he is only a bard. Unaware of his friend's deception, Kun lightheartedly notes that bards are much more helpless. The company of 4 students continues its dangerous path to the portal, which runs through the dark night forest. Again, Su Nian comes to a new mission, which is that our hero needs to voluntarily kill some person, for which he will receive 5 shame points and boots with clouds. The guy realized that the fugitive thief had died and he had accidentally completed that cruel task. He reflects that even though Wu Ku was a dangerous killer, there was still a burden in his heart after the murder, and later the guy saw that for this he was counted 1 kill point, which is not clear for what purpose. Yu Yu asks his sister why she is so drawn to fights and dangerous people, and Kun explains this by the fact that the chosen ones are not always bad personalities and the girl's desire to get to know them to compare forces. The headman turns to Su Nanya and asks if he is interested in learning about Pulo's coming. The main character wondered if it was possible to find out anything else about this event, because during the activation of the connection with Master Lone, he saw absolutely everything before the invasion of alien creatures. The guy decided to lie again and said that he was not interested in fights and danger, and Kun responded to this that his friend was a very kind and gentle person. Yu Yu, remembering with what force Su Nan beat the thief, casts doubt on the assertion about the guy's tenderness. Suddenly Zhang Yingluo tensed up because she felt something and stopped. She shouted to the entire group of students to be as careful as possible. The girl prepared herself by taking out her weapon and informed everyone that there was most likely a portal to the gorge in front of them. Some unfamiliar voice turns to her and says that out of the 4 chosen ones who bought entrance tickets, there is not a single Confucius warrior, so he does not want to let students through. Zhang Yingluo is serious, so she boldly says that she came here not for the sake of the portal, but for a brawl with real fighters who are going to go to the world of Pulo. A man dressed in a robe with a hood calls the girl a fool and does not agree to her challenge. The mysterious person describes the team of students as a real warrior of Confucius, a frail thief and generally an ordinary person. But among everyone, the stranger singled out Su Nan, because it is impossible to understand the young man's affiliation and recognize his strength. Our hero continues to lie that he is an ordinary bard, to which the mysterious man says that the guy is an ordinary loser, but this only benefits him, because he has been hiding his real capabilities for a long time. The stranger got angry and took out a staff because he believes that a bunch of weaklings will not interfere with his business. And Kun is trying to warn everyone that their opponent is going to use the level 4 powerful lightning spell. Zhang Yingluo rushed towards her opponent with lightning speed in order to prevent the first from attacking. But suddenly she plunged her weapon not into a person, but into a small doll. The girl was very unhappy because of this manipulation on the part of her strong opponent. Yu Yu was starting to panic because she was worried that if the elder sister's opponent finished his spell, then Zhang Yingluo's white magic would not be enough, so Su Nan decides to stop hiding her abilities. At this moment, our hero receives a new mission, which requires him to pretend to be a bard to defeat the spellcaster Zhao Wan, for which he will be given 5 shame points and a free attribute. Yu Yu starts yelling at Su Nan for standing rooted to the spot. The girl begs him to help and sing to increase her older sister's strength. The guy decided to pretend to be a bard until the end, so he announced that he was starting to perform the song. He began his, as if real, bard singing and spells. A soundless scream burst into the fight. At this time, Zhang Yingluo was desperately trying to find the real caster among the large number of artificial copies of him. Suddenly Zhao Wen heard a loud song and realized that something was not going according to plan. Suddenly, some kind of dark energy began to tear him apart and a piercing scream was heard, which is why the girl was seriously scared. Zhang Yingluo was standing among a dozen cut-up dolls when the caster fell unconscious due to the fact that a mistake was made in the spell, so he paid for it. The girl suspected something, because she didn't know that bards have songs that tear the soul apart from the inside, so she seriously asked our hero about it. Su Nan completed the mission, so he received many prizes and new charisma skills, and when asked by Zhang Yingluo, he replied that the caster was too shocked by the song, so he was distracted from the spell. At this time, in the head of the main character there were only thoughts about his new skills related to charisma, because he had difficulty coping with the ability of a shining face, and with endless attractiveness it would be much more fun. Suddenly, someone turns to the students and reproaches them for knocking out Zhao Wen, and the portal may disappear. A group of 3 people came out of the forest, namely a tall young man with glasses, a small boy and a man in a robe, who were unhappy, because they had gone broke to buy 2 tickets to go to Pulo. Everyone is standing at the door of the portal, and Su Nan asks the strangers if they are the same chosen ones who bought the tickets, and why they want to go to another world. The guy with glasses is dissatisfied with so many questions. Zhang Ying Luo shows her ID, and it turns out that she is from the 1000 Peak Society of N City, which controls all the chosen ones. She apologized to Su Nan and Akun for lying, and at that moment the main character was thinking whether the man in the robe could help with the portal and decided to try to do something. A little nervous, the guy walked up to the portal and touched its door. Suddenly the door opened and a bright white light poured from the portal, illuminating everything around. The man in the robe was very surprised, because, apparently, he did not expect that the teleport would just work, and our hero was no less surprised. No one knew that Su Nan could open the Kaisa gate, and the guy with glasses eagerly asked if this portal could take them to Pulo. But the main character seems to be up to something, and with a smile on his face hints that the teleport belongs to him now. The guy decided to point out that in order to progress further, you need to provide him with 3 types of magical weapons. The strangers were outraged by such a rip-off, because they had already paid for the tickets in advance, and the little boy was screaming because he only has 8 ordinary weapons, and magic ones can only be found in Pulo. The guy with glasses quickly covered the younger man's mouth with his hand so that he wouldn't talk too much. Meanwhile, Su Nan received a new mission, which is that he must help Song Ying, Zhang Feng and Zhang Fengqi get to the world of Pulo, but they must leave the most precious thing on earth. Our hero sarcastically called this task super ethical. The guy abruptly changed his terms and ordered them to give up the expensive item and leave it here. Zhang Ying Luo stopped him to warn him about the illegality of these actions, because Qianmanshi prohibits doing such things. Su Nan denies, because these people themselves were going to cross into the world and no one has the right to prohibit them from doing so. The girl wanted to add something else, but remembered that she was only a trainee and did not yet have the authority to intervene, so today she would turn a blind eye to these actions. The man in the cape declares that all things in this world lose their meaning, because they go to another universe. Therefore, she gave the guy all her property, namely 36 boutiques and 4 office buildings, which now belong to him. The younger boy gave away his cap, and the young man with glasses gave away his account with the numbers of all the influential and rich people in the Jiangdong region. In the end, the mission was quickly completed and the embarrassed Su Nan stood with these gifts in his hands. Suddenly Akun quickly passes by him and confidently steps towards the portal. All the students call their headman, who has already almost reached the threshold of the teleport door. He says that if the portal is already open, then Su Nan's help in transportation is, in principle, no longer needed. The main character shouts to his friend that he must get out of there immediately, but he stubbornly pursues his dream of going to the world of Pulo to become a fighting monk. And Kun gives a philosophical speech about how he and Su Nan are smart and capable people, but their path in life is quite thorny, and ends it with his decision to leave, wanting to meet in the distant future. The main character wanted to stop him with a story about one doctor who was able to perform only one operation, but did not become a chosen one or a professional. The headman wanted to return and listen to his comrade, but something went wrong. All his friends from the outside witnessed the portal door slam shut immediately behind Akun, and could not find words to describe this situation. Su Nan watched in fear as the portal began to shrink and distort the space around it. As a result, it shrank into a small ball with a curl on it. Our hero looked at this object sparkling with blue light with incomprehension. Looking at this mysterious ball in his hands, the guy thought that, apparently, the portal had gone into a state of hibernation, so it would take some time to reactivate it. Su Nan says that the headman is very heroic, because an ordinary person faces danger in the new world, but Zhang Ying Luo denies this by saying that Akun is a computer genius. She talks about an incident last year where there was a large outbreak of computer viruses, and asks if it happened so accidentally that the local network was not affected at all. Having finished the story about her comrade, Zhang Ying Luo began to argue that for the sake of safety, something needs to be done with Zhao Wen's body, because magical powers remained in the body, which could lead to strange events. Yu Yu found a small castor bag that she believed supported magic, but opening it was not so easy because Zhao Wan had placed magical protection on the item. Su Nan was confused because the skilled thief seemed unable to open locks and steal. The girl explains this by saying that she is sweet and charming, but the guy reminds her that her profession is completely different. At this point, Zhaning Luo decides that he should try to open the bag with brute force, and then everyone will have a chance to take something from it. The comrades agreed to this, so they concentrated and used their powers on the wallet. The older sister just pulled out a napkin, the younger sister received a book of spells, and our hero was holding a magic dagger in his hands. It turned out that the dagger is only used for breakfast and it is prohibited to use it for combat purposes, and at this time Yu was glad that she had the most valuable item. The guy responded to this by saying that he would be able to melt down the weapons and use the materials for the further production of various magical weapons, which would be many times more valuable than the book. The girl immediately began to be capricious and asked for an exchange with Su Nan, but he was not stupid and did not behave like this. Finally, a difficult and eventful day has ended and the next lunch has arrived. Our hero is at home. He approached the garage door, where he hoped to finally see his magical pet. Su Nan had high hopes for the animal and hoped to see a dragon or a bone dog. Suddenly a huge panda jumps out at him from the garage and he is seriously scared. But nothing terrible happened, because the animal just wanted to hug its new owner, but he was unhappy, because he was definitely not expecting to see a cute bear. The guy was finally able to put his new companion aside and consider that it really was a panda. The beast repeated his master's question that he was a new magical pet, which made our hero surprised. The bear seemed quite obedient to Su Nan and the guy decided to use his abilities of endless attractiveness and radiant face. The pet was unhappy that his owner considered himself handsome, because he did not want to be obsessed with the idea of competition with the owner. The panda turned her back to the guy and ordered him to leave, because she was not going to live such a life, but Su Nan reminded him that this was his house and garage. Finally, the newly made friends found a common language and our hero began to learn more about his companion, namely that his name was Xiao Xiao. The bear noted that the guy couldn't just get rid of him. Looking menacingly at the owner, the panda said that this could happen if only the pet wanted it. As it turned out, Su Nan's younger brother was waiting for his comrades at home, sitting in tears on the sofa, because he was worried that the guy was not answering calls. The bear fell in love with the feminine guy at first sight and was ready to change his master and serve the new one for the rest of his life. Hin was very scared, because you don't always see a huge panda at home. The panda looks at his new object of adoration with great desire, but Hin cannot calm down and asks his older brother what it is. Su Nan responds to this that the panda is a national symbol, but the younger brother is not satisfied with this answer, so the question again arises, where did this animal come from, which even before that speaks. Hin asks if everything is okay with his older brother, which is why the main character was even a little touched, because his brother was so worried about him. Our hero became angry with the panda and threatened to kill her by force if she did not leave. The bear fell into hysterics, because he didn't understand what kind of connection there could be between Su Nan and Hin. The guy explains that they only take. The animal did not want to believe the guy, because his owner has vulgar manners, and his brother looks like a sacred nymph, at which the guy got even more angry and again began to drive away the magical pet. Hin confirmed that Su Nan is indeed his brother. The panda was very upset by the position of her goddess, so against her wishes she continued to serve her master. Our hero decided to ask his companion whether he could cast magic or turn into a fighting monk, to which the favorite answered in the negative. The sad panda says that her personality shows that you shouldn't expect much from her skills. Su Nan could no longer stand it and reminded his companion that he needed to go and threatened with his magic staff, to which the bear said that cruelty to animals is punishable by law. The magical pet decided to show the contract and told his master to read it carefully again. It seems that the main character read something important there and got a little nervous. Suddenly he changed his attitude towards his ward and said that he never insults anyone and allows Xiao Xiao to live with them under the same roof in the garage. The panda was very happy because he could live next to his already beloved princess, but she just doesn't understand why her brother has changed so much. As it turned out, Article 17 of the contract stated that a magical companion could help in completing a mission or become an additional source of energy, so the guy, for his own benefit, changed his attitude towards the panda. Events are transferred to the next day. to a local cafe. Zhang Yingluo sits and tells the news that the Dr. Lu Xun fled because he displeased a woman named Wen Xian and is now in South America or Australia. Su Nan does not understand why she is telling him this, but the girl clarifies that she wanted to talk about another matter. Zhang Yingluo invites the main character to join the Society of Thousand Spades and hands him a registration form. She explains this by saying that the recruitment of the elite from all over the world will soon begin. The girl continues to say that society believes that the chosen ones can help with the invasion of other worlds in the near future. In a particular case, the guy will be able to take over the leadership of the Liberation Army, for which he will receive a generous reward. So Zhang Yingluo hopes that the guy will consider this proposal. With confidence in his eyes, Su Nan immediately replies that he is ready to fill out the form for the 1000 Spade Society. After this serious conversation, our hero returned to his home again. He went into the garage to visit a new friend, and he, in turn, was delighted to see his owner return. Looking around the room, Su Nan noticed a TV on the table and an air conditioner on the wall, which he had never seen before. The guy immediately asked where his companion got all these things, to which he replied that he borrowed them, but it was clear that he stole them. The main character already began to doubt whether it was the right decision to keep the magical pet for himself, but he received 2 additional shame points. Suddenly, the portal informed Su Nan that it seemed to be working again, which made the guy quite surprised. A bottle with a message inside appeared in the air. He was surprised by this thing and began to examine it carefully. Su Nan noticed that there was a tag with a name attached to her neck, namely Caesar. Events are transferred to an unknown ancient castle, which is located in the middle of a dense forest. The bespectacled young man, who previously wanted to go through the portal, solemnly turns to Lady Mary and asks if she was looking for him. The lady stands with her back to the guy and talks about the sorcerer who allegedly sent him here. She returns and notes that this magician cares deeply about the well-being of her guest, and hands him some piece of paper. It turned out that this letter is from Su Nan, and the lady asks the guy to read the text, because she is not strong in Chinese. He was very touched, because he did not expect such kindness from our hero, because they barely knew each other. Madame Mayer asks Su Nan's opinion about teleporting people from Earth to their world, to which the guy with glasses replies that the guy is interested in the price for each teleported person. Because of such insolence of the protagonist, there was complete silence in the room for several minutes, after which the young lady exploded, because she does not consider Sui Nan good at all, because she is the poorest of all the princesses of the kingdom and does not have money to pay. At this time her subject is trying to calm the girl down. The guy thought that they could use not only money to pay for the services of a guide. The guy invites Mrs. Mayer to pay with her knowledge in the field of magic, because she is a rather powerful sorceress, and their partner also knows magic, so this will be a useful and profitable agreement for everyone. The princess listened to her subject and allowed him to leave. The girl began to think about whether Su Nan would accept such an offer, because he had no other options. Now the events are transferred to the educational institution where the main character studies. Our hero is surrounded by girls, one of whom wants to sit with him, and the other asks Su Nan to remind her of the accounting course, because she supposedly completely forgot it. It turned out that there were more than 2 girls there, and the guy came in a mask so that no one would recognize him, but his fans still recognized everyone. Another student approached the main character and explained that Su Nan's popularity was growing rapidly after the latest news in which about him, and also said that everyone already knew about their closeness with Zhang Yingluo. Yu Yu decided to play a trick on her friend and asked what kind of panties he was wearing today and whether they were strong enough. Some students recognized her and said hello, and she happily said hello back. Su Nan behaved very strangely and replied that today he came without any panties at all. From such an answer, everyone around stood in a stupor and did not know how to comment on such a joke, it seemed. In fact, our hero had a need to complete a new mission, which gave him as much as 6 points of shame and consisted in the fact that the guy needed to admit about his unusual passion, for which he was very ashamed. This task opened a chain of missions called What's Natural, Not Ugly, which would consist of 36 tasks and unlock the druid superpower, but this did not cheer Su Nan up. Suddenly, Yu Yu ran into his class and took the guy away from class because she wanted to talk about something important with him while her older sister wasn't watching them. The friends walked away from the office and the young man irritably asked what was the matter. Yu Yu reminds the main character of the ficus tree, because of which she fell during their first meeting, and claims that in that place there is a secret underground city, where she wants to go with Su Nan for reconnaissance, which is why the guy very surprised. He asks if it would be better to entrust this dangerous mission to the Society of 1000 Spades. But Yu Yu rejects this proposal, explaining that she and her sister have different views on life, because society has already completely brainwashed her. The girl says that a group of werewolves and dwarf devils have set up camp along the underground river, and notes that the most important thing is that they are speculating on goods from another world, which will be quite useful for Su Nan. With a smile on her face, Yu Yu asks the guy if she was able to interest him with such offers. For some reason, what is on our hero's mind right now is that he has never noticed how very attractive his girlfriend is. He unconditionally agreed to her proposal and asked about the start time of the operation, to which Yu Yu replied that it was necessary as soon as possible, so they agreed on 8 p.m. Since Su Nan believes that he and the girl are not yet professionals, he offers to take with him an assistant in the form of Xiao Xiao, who knows how to fight and pretend to be cute. Evening has come and our hero and his companion are walking around the city, disguised with clothes and masks, to which, although the panda reacted joyfully, he still could not understand the purpose of this amazing walk. His partner was unhappy with their lateness, but he explained this by the fact that they spent a lot of time preparing the costumes. There is a conversation about the need for masks, to which our hero replied that they always do that in films, and that the panda is like a human shield compared to the guy. Xiao Xiao did not like that he was considered a weapon for battle, but no one paid attention to this, because he had to go into the dungeon in search of werewolves and gnomes. The bear was angry at the indifference to him, so he tore his clothes and shouted that he did not want to be a shield, and said that if anything happened to him, it would only be on the conscience of his partners. Only when the animal took off its disguise did Yu Yu realize that it was a panda, and meanwhile Su Nan was reminding his companion of some rules and regulations, which made him unhappy. Xiao Xiao shouted that he was blind when he agreed to become the master's magical pet, and the girl mentally noted that the bear's behavior was similar to that of a woman. Finally, the team reached the entrance to the dungeon, which was located on the site of the well. Su Nan encourages the panda to go first, for then he will tell the goddess, in the form of his younger brother, about Xiao Xiao's bravery. The panda climbed up first, asking if he was really that stupid, and Yu Yu watched with hope to see if the bear would crawl into the well. As it turned out, the animal was too fat to fit through the narrow entrance, so it stuck upside down from the hole, and the girl thought it was quite cute. Finally, our heroes went down the rope into the dungeon, and Xiao Xiao noted that it was quite spacious here. Yu Yu now suggested following her well-thought-out strategy, but Su Nan interrupted the girl and said that she and her companion had a better plan for going further. The partner did not understand what he meant. The bear became a little nervous, and the young man reminded him of the law of a magical pet. The owner ordered his companion to move on, which he obeyed without complaint. The bear ran forward with incredible speed, and Yu Yu watched in surprise, thinking that it was quite scary. The surprised girl and the calm guy watched the panda work, and Su Nan noted that the jackals here are only cannon fodder if there are no other monsters. Xiao Xiao quickly dispatched his opponents with incredible ease and strength. The team praised the bear for his work, to which he responded by asking if this was really normal and if there was any point in being careful now. While listening to his partner about the level of his opponents and their health, Xiao Xiao does not notice that a werewolf arrow is aimed at him. Suddenly an unexpected arrow flies into the back of the beast. The panda begins to cry and scream to his owner about pain, but he calms his companion and promises to support him. Su Nan uses a powerful therapy spell to heal the magical pet. The jackals notice that there is help behind the opponent's back, so one of them ordered the guy and the girl to be destroyed. Our hero raises his hands and orders the pundi not to think about anything and to become a giant. Surrounded by jackals, Xiao Xiao actually becomes several times larger. His opponents stood in fear, shocked by such capabilities of their opponent. Xiao Xiao began to disperse them and order the jackals to kneel in front of him. Su Nan behaves like a real thief, to which Yu Yu notes that her partners are already more like villains than real enemies. At this time, the bear continues to deal with the jackals, causing them to scatter in different directions and scream pitifully. Finally, he finished the fight and returned to his normal size, and from the side his master shouted that Xiao Xiao was a real hero. The panda suddenly returned to the owner and began shouting about a salary increase, because now the animal wants the largest TV in the bedroom and a computer. The companion also spoke about emotions in magical animals and threatened that if he reached a state of hatred, he could terminate the contract, but our hero understood everything perfectly. In addition, Su Nan promised to give the Pundi an autograph from Changji, which made the animal incredibly happy. Suddenly their conversation is interrupted by Yu, who calls the guy because she found something among the werewolf supplies. The girl noticed that the monsters are quite poor, because they don't even have a full set of equipment. Xiao Xiao and the guy looked at each other and realized that they were only able to win because their opponents were very poor. Next, our heroes met the devils, who tearfully told them that the jackals kept them as slaves and food. The panda and the main character looked at each other with misunderstanding in their eyes and, it seems, they felt sorry for these creatures. One of the devils began to explain that he just wanted to build an underground city here, and if people help them, then they won't interfere. Yu noted that this place is not safe enough for such purposes. But the devil assured the team that before the jackals were the most important here, so everything was safe. Su Nan asked the main ones again, and the creatures began to explain that they needed help before, so they turned to the demon Inoi, who led them out of the rift to Earth. Explaining further, the devil says that spatial rifts are very unstable and have limited power, so the higher the level of merging of the pro-world and Earth, the stronger the magical creatures. After listening to the story to the end, Su Nan noted that the underground city needs to be built as quickly as possible. The conversation was interrupted by a phone call from a law firm calling about Miss Suning's will. It was necessary to arrange certain formalities, and our hero completely forgot about his meeting tomorrow at 9. Su Nan decided to leave the construction of the city to his partners, because the guy had urgent matters, to which Xiao Xiao reacted violently and called the owner a slacker. The guy denies the panda's words and begins to conjure something in his hands. He made small robots for his friends to help, and was mentally glad that he had Exxon crystals to create mechanical assistants. Su Nan asked his magical pet if he needed a new computer, to which he responded approvingly. The young man left Yu as the captain of the city's construction, and she happily noted that this would allow him to scout the area. Su Nan said goodbye to his friends and went to prepare for his important matters. The girl was happy because all the treasures found would now be hers, and the bear looked at his partner with incomprehension. Our tired hero came to the surface and went to the place he needed. Arriving at the law firm and learning all the details, Su Nan was very surprised by the amount of property that he would receive and could not believe that all this was happening for Real. Thus, the guy immediately became a small tycoon with 36 stores in the most luxurious area of the city and 2 profitable shares. Going out into the street, the main character saw a crowd of people and therefore went up to ask the guy what was happening here. He pointed to the roof of a high-rise building, where the silhouette of a person was visible, and explained that, most likely, someone was going to jump from there. Suddenly, a man started shouting to that person, calling him Song Xiaocheng, and begging him not to jump because of unrequited love with Qi Zijun and to remember that he always has a backup option in the form of this man. Meanwhile, our hero decided to take a closer look at the roof and noticed that it seemed to be shaking. Su Nan wondered if this could only happen because of relationship problems. The hero comes with a task that should awaken the blood of the sorcerer Ran, and is that the guy must be kind and dispel Song Xiaochen's thoughts of suicide, but the guy does not understand how this concerns his path of shame. He understands that if he fails the task, he will not be able to avoid the demons and get a good reward, so the guy decided that he had to try. Our hero went up to the roof to talk to Song Xiaochen and asked if his girlfriend really broke up with him. At the same time, Su Nan turned on all possible charisma options to successfully negotiate with the depressed guy. The main character began a typical motivational conversation about how none of this matters, etc., but his speech was interrupted. The tearful guy explained that his mother had actually died, so Su Nan realized that his previous advice was terrible. In addition, Song Xiaochen was outraged that she left the entire inheritance not to her son, but to some nice guy. The guy began to cry into our hero's shoulder and shout that he was no longer his mother's son, and curse Su Nan, not suspecting that he was standing right in front of him. Su Nan decided to ask again, just in case, what the guy's mother's name was. In tears, he replies that her name was Suning, and hopefully asks if his interlocutor knew his mother. Song Xiaochen says that if the guy knows Su Nan, then let him tell his location and the guy will cut him into pieces, so because of this whole situation, the main character begins to panic even more. Several more people climbed onto the roof and saw the main character calming the guy down. Su Nan tried to be disgusted by the fact that he knew Song Xiaochen's mother. At the same moment, the guy is approached by a strange man whom he met from below, calling the name of our hero, which is why all the lies were immediately exposed. Song Xiaochen, with a discouraged face, asked what his savior had just been called. The guy immediately said that he knew about the prevalence of this name, but still would not believe this version, and Su Nan tried to explain that he was misunderstood. Suddenly, Song Xiaochen falls to his knees in front of the main characters and starts shouting that it is his father. All the people around did not understand what was happening between these two. Only the strange man was touched by this situation. It turned out that the guy was thinking about the relationship between his mother and Su Nan, but he explained that although it was really him, he did not have any love with that woman. In hysterics, Song Xiaochen explained that he had run out of money, so now Su Nan must take care of him, but the main character is not happy with this and says that the guy needs to go to a psychiatric hospital and there will be many people there who want to become his father. Su Ning's son assures that he really ran out of money, because if it were different, he would not have made this whole scene. Su Nan mentally noted that this guy's moral principles had fallen enough, and if it weren't for the blood connection with the sorcerers, he would hardly have been involved in the family business. As a result, the main character got angry, so he promised the guy $500 in pocket money so that Song Xiaochen would finally leave him behind. The guy was delighted and promised Su Nan to study hard and save money in order to improve himself and bring glory to his guardian. But our hero angrily refused all this and ordered him not to look for him anymore. Su Nan thought that Song Xiaocheng didn't look like someone whose mother had recently passed away. He decided for himself that he no longer wanted to have any connections with this amazing guy. Finally, having finished all his important business, the main character could return to the underground city to his friends. He was being chased by a large crowd of people and at first Su Nan did not understand the reason. But then he remembered that he had not turned off the abilities of Shining Face and the power of attraction. Su Nan decided to leave his fans, but they began to pursue their object of deification. Suddenly someone grabs the guy by the hand and pulls him around the corner of the building, saving him from the crowd. A crowd of fans runs past their hiding place, while the main character nervously watches them. Upon returning, the guy recognized his savior as Dr. Lu Junai, who noted that his patient was still popular and explained that he was here to remove the guy's stitches. Su Nan remembered that the doctor planned to flee to South America, but his acquaintance explained his presence here by saying that he had no way to escape and there had already been an attempt to catch him, and the guy guessed that he was probably talking about Wen Xian. Having taken off his disguise, Lu Jun added with a calm expression that it was unlikely that they would kill him, only castrate him. The doctor wanted to take a look at how the guy's wound was healing, but the main character refused to examine him in the middle of the street. Instead, the guy seriously asked if the doctor knew anything about professionals, to which he reacted rather nervously. He ordered him not to be deceived, because all the people whom Lu Jun helped operate on received superpowers. There was fear and surprise in the doctor's eyes, as if he really didn't know about his capabilities. He was upset because if he had known about his capabilities, he would have immediately raised the fee 1,000 times. Standing on all fours, the doctor noted that he had not slept for 40 hours, so he asked Su Nan for a place for himself and promised to continue this conversation later. Remembering the underground city, the main character told his friend that he was heading to a secret place. After some time, having already reached the underground city, the guy wakes up Dr. Lu Junai, because he falls asleep in the middle of a conversation. The doctor asks if this is a secret base with slaves, to which our hero answers in the negative, and at this time the devils are working hard on construction. The acquaintance remembers and asks Su Nan to pick up the list of patients before he goes to bed and contact them. The doctor was so tired that he fell asleep again in the middle of the conversation, and with his eyes open. The main character notices that Lu Junai has rather weak breathing, which is why he is wary. Xiao Xiao reassures his master that his friend simply hasn't rested for a long time, so most likely he won't wake up for several days. In his mind, Su Nan wondered whether the doctor's lack of sleep was related to his profession, and how long it would take for Lu Junyi to recover. He mentioned prophecies and the first of them should happen in literally 2 days, so if this is true, you need to hurry and start collecting resources. So the guy decided to quickly see what tasks were available for completion and found one that required the guy to force a couple to break up. Events move to a new acquaintance of our hero named Song Xiao Chen, who seems to have failed again due to lack of funds. The nice lady cashier politely suggested that the guy pay elsewhere. The young man irritably says that for some reason he is refused in all places. His girlfriend says she has a bad feeling and suggests they go home, but Song Xiao Chen wants to go for a walk. They went for a walk on the school lawn and the guy noted that this was also a rather romantic place. A romantic moment ensued between the couple as they stood and looked lovingly into each other's eyes. Suddenly, a guy appears nearby, shouting that he found a silver egg and will now be incredibly rich. The guy and the girl just now noticed that for some reason at this time there were still a lot of people at school and looking for something. The young man with the silver egg explained to Song Xiao Chen that student Su Nan from the Foreign Language Agency was holding an event today where eggs could be found and then exchanged for prizes. The girl immediately got excited about the idea of trying her luck and participating in the search for eggs, to which her boyfriend did not react positively enough. He was upset that Su Nan was able to ruin everything even here, and his soulmate had already run in search. Watching Song Xiao Chen suffer, the main character apologized as if he would hear him. He explains this by saying that he does all this only to earn activity points. The guy gets it for every couple he interferes with, so Song Xiao Chen fell under the hot hand. Su Nan himself wants to see what treasures a person with a large number of activity points can get. Now the events have moved to the Paradise Lost Alchemy Center. A man runs as fast as he can into the office. A young man runs in and reports that something very bad is happening. As it turned out, the alchemical treasury that had been prepared for the first-order sorcerer had completely dried up, but the guy's colleague still didn't understand what kind of nonsense he was talking about. But this is all true and one person took all the treasures, although it is not clear where he got so many points, so one of the alchemists began to explain that this person sold the shares of 2 companies. He continued to say that the system awarded that sorcerer a number of points that they definitely did not expect, so if things continue like this, then no one else will be able to receive the reward. People with superpowers began to notice interruptions in the purchase of things. One of them noticed that even the teeth of bats were missing. Another person asked irritably who could sell out everything in the store so quickly. Su Nan also no longer had anything in the store, which he complained about irritably, because he was promised a 100% prize. Suddenly, the space in front of the main character is torn apart by a black hole of unknown origin. It expands and as a result absorbs Su Nanya, who does not understand what is happening. As if nothing had happened, the black hole narrows to a small point, but our hero is nowhere to be seen. The disoriented guy is transported to the Lost Paradise Alchemy Center. He is met by a bespectacled alchemist, who explains that it was he who dared to invite the guy here. From the outside, the center looks very majestic and large-scale. Our hero is congratulated in room number 7. The older man says that even the droppings and teeth of bats were bought, but, perhaps, these strange things have already been restored, and the younger specialist notes that the supply of some precious stones and metals will be difficult to replenish. The main character is annoyed that the employees of the Alchemy Center are putting so much pressure on him. They explained that the points he earned far exceeded the material supply, so Su Nan concluded that the Alchemy Center was unprepared for such a situation. The man offered to compensate the materials with gold as a reward for processing. The guy demanded that he be given more jewelry, but the employee noted that this was beyond their authority. The man decided that today they would call someone with the nickname Legend to make a decision, but the younger guy noted that Mr. Romaine was apparently fighting with the lords, so there was no need to bother him about the old man. Suddenly, a long-bearded sorcerer with a staff appears in the middle of the hall using a teleport. The bearded man looks with a penetrating gaze towards the main character, who seems to recognize him, so he became nervous. Also teleported along with him was a monster standing behind the sorcerer and about to attack him. The experienced magician immediately reacted to this attempt and managed to skillfully dodge. He cast a strong spell, so the hand quickly disappeared and was no longer a threat. The employees of the Alchemy Center had to cover themselves with robes, because due to magic a powerful whirlwind formed in the room. The strong sorcerer began to read the poem, conjuring a small light in his hands. The main character recognized him as one of the 3 legends of the Lost Paradise. The alchemical staff bowed before the powerful Mr. Romaine to complete all the formalities at the meeting, but he said that there was no need to worry about trifles. The sorcerer looked at Su Nan again and said that he had already found out everything. He ruled on the situation with the supplies that the broken finger and the devil's hand should be returned, and the guy could keep all the other things, but the guy says that this is wrong. Mr. Roman noted that he would ask to exchange these items for something of equal value, so Su Nan quickly changes his mind and agrees to such conditions. Also, the respected man invited the guy to go to his residence, because now is the right time to travel to the Lost Paradise, and besides, the blacksmiths are already bored with our hero. The staff at the Alchemy Center were shocked that the elders could be so good and benevolent. Su Nan arrived at Roman's residence, which looks like a small, cozy wooden house. He was met by old friends, namely the squirrels, for whom the young man brought several more jars of his mother's homemade sauce. The sorcerer tells his assistant to take the dragon's head and bake it in the oven, because this way the process will go faster. He began to explain to Su Nan that the things he was being asked to return were dangerous for an inexperienced guy, and it didn't matter whether he left them for energy or research. Suddenly our hero decided to talk completely off topic and asked why, in order to become stronger, he needed to do something related to shame. Mr. Romaine began to interpret this by saying that each Ron warlock has his own way of awakening. For example, when the sorcerer himself was young, he had a way of anger. In the 3 Legends of Paradise Lost, he appears as Wrath, Almius is the Nervous, and the Lion King is the Feigned Force, meaning that all sorcerers are different. But Mr. Roman notes that the path of shame seems difficult and seems to be falling fast, and our hero wonders why the man has such an opinion. The magician explains that many people eventually go crazy after several attempts at shame, at which point Su Nan wonders whether he is really so shameless. After the guest at the residence, the guy returns to the underground town, where active construction is in full swing. In his hands he holds a card, which is actually a pass to Paradise Lost, and examines it carefully. This pass was kindly provided to him by the employees of the Alchemy Center as compensation, and noted that the main character can exchange with other people in the Lost Paradise system. The guy regarded this as a good opportunity to make money, but did not understand what to do, because he had no items left for exchange, but still tried to enter the login information into the system. He realized that now it was much more important for him to have coins rather than materials. Therefore, Su Nan decided to exchange all his remaining points for gold coins. Also, the guy did not forget about powerful magical equipment for himself, because he had quite a large choice. Among all those offered, the main character chose a good dark burgundy robe. He was delighted with the new magical equipment, and just at that moment a new task came for the guy. The mission is that the guy needs to take off all his clothes and wear only a robe for 24 hours, for which he will receive 6 shame points and a random druid skill. Su Nan liked the prize, so he began to perform tasks and undress, and one of the devils watched this process. Our hero decided that if he fastened a couple of buttons on his robe, then everything would go quite normally. It was Yu Yu who came when the guy finished preparing for the task. Su Nan noted that he had just saved something for the girl, and at that moment she wanted to joke and steal the guy's panties. Looking at her hands, she noticed that they had nothing left, so she became suspicious. Yu Yu was embarrassed and asked if her friend really didn't wear underwear. Su Nan started running after his friend because of such jokes and asking her to take him to panty stealing training, and the guy, in turn, would take her to the dungeon. After adventures in the underworld, the main character returned home, where his mutual friend with Lu Jin named Shifang Ling was waiting for him. The guy told her that the doctor made him a Superman and is now in the dungeon, but the girl was not going to believe this nonsense. He nervously remarked about his girlfriend's intolerance, because the guy told everything immediately after her arrival from abroad, but the girl didn't want to believe it. Also, our hero was unhappy that he only invited Fang Ling, and for some reason the pervert Yu Yu also came. Meanwhile, a friend suggested that the guy do a projection for underground construction, which he was happy about. Fang Ling agreed to help, but first she wanted to meet with Lu Jun, and the guy happily agreed to conduct it. Suddenly, someone rang the doorbell and Yu Yu quickly ran to open it and see who came. Opening the front door, the girl met a nurse on the threshold. Yu Yu asked the stranger why she was wearing a nurse's uniform and who she was looking for. it turned out that she needed Su Nan. Suddenly the thief decides to use his ability to steal underwear on a nurse. Now the girl had panties with Piggy in her hands and she noticed that they were not suitable for temptation. It seems that Yu was jealous of her friend, so she quickly lied that there was no Su Nan here, and slammed the door behind her, without giving the underwear to the poor nurse. Gu Xiaoming didn't want to be ignored, so she made another decisive call using the intercom. This time, Fang Ling, who thought that there was a courier at the door, came out and also said that Su Nan was not at home, so she had to come tomorrow. She also quickly slammed the door, and the nurse didn't even have time to say a word. The upset girl shouted to the owners of the house that they were very rude and begged them to at least return her stolen underwear. Suddenly the door opens and a huge panda stands in the doorway, asking Gu Xiaoming what she is doing. Seeing the bear in the doorway, the nurse was incredibly scared of such a huge beast. After she realized that the beast could still talk, the girl lost consciousness from shock. Gu Xiaoming opened her eyes while lying in a completely different place, and not on the street. The panty thief sat in front of her and looked at her contemptuously, and someone from the side was glad that the nurse had come to her senses. Raising her head, she finally saw Su Nan, whom she had been trying so hard to find. Our hero immediately became embarrassed and apologized for his ridiculous confession and for the fact that he was now avoiding his friend. Suddenly Gu Xiaoming raises her voice and resolutely asks the guy to date her, and the guy is surprised at such a rapid development of events. The nurse says that she doesn't care whether the guy was joking before, because now she says it in all seriousness. She begins to pester the main character and argue that he should be with her, but the guy cannot understand what is happening. Yu intervenes in the conversation and allegedly warns Gu Xiaoming that Su Nan is a real pervert because he walks around without underwear, which the nurse does not pay attention to, because she herself is now without panties, because they were stolen by a thief, and the guy at that time incredibly annoyed. Such a strange situation. Gu Xiaoming notes in his thoughts that the thief and her object of sympathy are very strange, like real people with skills. Su Nan decided to try to improve the situation and suggested that the nurse answer one question, after which they could talk calmly. The guy asked the girl to examine Dr. Lu, which made her afraid for the doctor's condition, because the man's breathing was becoming weaker. She agreed to examine Lu Jin and asked where he was, to which she was told that in a wooden house. The nurse cast a spell and began to study the doctor's illness using magic. While Gu Xiaoming was conducting a magical examination of the man, the entire team of friends watched her in surprise. Su Nan decided to ask the nurse after he learned that she was also a professional, whether she worked for Lu Jin, and at that time she found the source of the disease. She agreed to tell all the other details only if the guy agreed to date her, which again puzzled our hero. You could tell from Dr. Lu's face that his condition seemed to have deteriorated greatly. The girl reassured Su Nan that he was just sleeping, and the guy was already on the verge and offered to wake up the doctor with a whip. Lu Jin opens his eyes, in which unknown fear and misunderstanding of what is happening is read. The doctor gets up and starts talking some nonsense about how he needs to escape because he went to the princess of the empire and a flotilla was sent after him. The man looks at all his dissatisfied and discouraged acquaintances, whom he does not recognize, and does not understand their presence here, because he was alone with the princess from his dreams. They explain to Dr. Lu that the empire has been gone for more than 1,000 years, but he refuses to believe that it was just a dream. In a passive-aggressive form, the main character turns to his friend and wants to explain several points to him, so the man begins to get nervous and warn the girls, because after this conversation their psyche may be spoiled. While Yu, Gu Xiaoming and the panda are standing at the door and waiting, the nurse begs the thief for her underwear, but categorically refuses. It turned out that Fang Ling wanted to ask the doctor to make her a sorceress, but he replied that he did not know how to control this process. The doctor replies that she is not in the best shape now, so she will be able to cut out the girl's appendix only in a few days, but she is not satisfied with this answer. Lu Jin notices that the main character is somehow irritated and angry all the time, and the guy explains this by saying that he was a victim of Dr. Lu's deception. Su Nan asks what his acquaintance is all about, to which he replies that he has a rather rare profession. The man begins to explain that he is actually an industrial goods specialist, and that this profession is better than being a regular alchemist. Lu Jin cannot forget his dream and remembers that the ship was a gift for his engagement to the princess, but Su Nan tries to bring him back to reality. Suddenly everyone heard some strange sounds and vibrations, which made everyone tense. Our hero ran out of the wooden house and asked the people who were standing outside what was happening. Our team of friends noticed that a huge spaceship was flying towards them, coming from somewhere underground. The shocked protagonist stood and watched the ship, which he recognized and named Dae-yun. The ship recognized our crew as its allies and asked if they had gained access. Su Nan didn't understand how they could be allies with the Empire. A voice from the ship began to explain that a long time ago, the Empire and the Lost Paradise formed an alliance, but for the last 1,000 years, the Lost Paradise violated the peace and did not support an ally in wars, which is why the Empire lost the war. The frightened protagonist asks why a ship from another world is here, to which he does not answer and orders that someone should take control of the ship. Lu Jin-yi happily ran out of the house because he thought that it was his princess who had sent a ship for her beloved. But the ship shocked the doctor and did not allow him to get closer, because there was no permission to do so. Yu didn't seem to pay attention to the strange situation around her. She only asked her friend that she also wanted to see the legendary Star Destroyer. The ship reported that almost all components were destroyed and disabled, namely, the weapons system, the power system, the navigation system, the flight system, and the guy asked what else was left in operation. The machine replied that only the central air conditioning system was working, so our hero asked what he needed the faulty vessel for. Su Nan decided to try to ask Dr. Lu to start the ship, but the doctor replied that he was of a lower level and could not do it, so out of anger, the protagonist kicked his friend. Meanwhile, the young man realized that the Lost Paradise and the Empire are allies, so the components for the ship can be looked for in the store to which he was recently given access. The guy found instructions for operating and maintaining the ship, but the book was thick, so Su Nan didn't even know when he would stop reading it. The evening came the next day when our hero continued to read the book and finally closed it, because some idea came to his mind. The guy took some accessories in the box and went to the internal components of the ship. There is an unknown tool in the box that Su Nan is going to charge with a lot of energy. To do this, the main character took the heart of the great devil and connected it to the device. The ship informed Su Nan that the replacement of primary energy was successful, which made the guy happy. First of all, our hero decided to change the state of the area to its original appearance, and the computer warned that there would be no turning back. Meanwhile, Dr. Lu cut his friend Fong Ling's nails to make her a professional, but she didn't understand what she had to feel to confirm the changes in herself. Lu Jin suggested that she still have her appendix cut out to be on the safe side, but the girl continued to categorically refuse. Suddenly, the friends felt the earthquake again, so they jumped up from their chairs, and did not understand what was happening this time. Gu Xiaoming prayed, while Xiao Xiao and Yu ran outside and began to observe the changes in their surroundings. A huge fortress appeared from an empty space near the dungeon, which left the observers in complete shock. The girl with the magical companion immediately ran towards Su Nanya. They came to him and joyfully asked if the castle was theirs now, to which the guy replied that friends could go and choose rooms for themselves. Suddenly, a portal appeared next to the main character, from which, as before, a bottle with a message appeared. Su Nan immediately became interested because it was again a letter from Caesar, so he deftly opened the scroll and began to read. Suddenly the guy saw something, because of which he began to get nervous and drops of sweat appeared at the head of him. Suddenly the events shift to the main character's younger brother, who again behaves with restraint, but something happens to his headphones. All the fans write in the chat that they also hear extraneous sounds. As it turns out, it was the gods who sent an urgent message. The day has come for another world to invade Earth, monsters are attacking cities, and people are running around in panic and trying to save their lives. The main character urgently looked for Lu Zun-yi to ask if he could teleport people and objects. The doctor really had such capabilities, but he did not understand why there was such a rush. Xiong Nan explained that he needed to teleport Xin Air and her room to the dungeon. The young man did not know how to use the teleport, which is why he asked his friend about it so much. Dr. Lu understood and agreed to the task, but asked for time to prepare. They ran into some majestic hall with a nice monument in the middle. The prepared forehead began to cast a spell and asked the main character to lead him to the right place. The guy concentrated, but ordered the doctor not to make a lot of noise, because no one should find out the whereabouts of Xin Air, who is the younger brother of the young man. He explained that the required building is located at number 9 in a residential area. The teleporter saw the desired room on the second floor, where Xin Er was sitting at the computer. Lu Jinai used the technique of capturing a room at close range for subsequent transportation. As a result, Dr. Lu delivered the girl safely to the dungeon, and Su Nan was glad that everything worked out after all. He fell to the floor exhausted and asked not to touch him for exactly a week so that he would have the opportunity to regain his strength. The guy wanted to warn that Xin Er should not find out, but before he could finish speaking, her piercing scream was already heard. She shouted out the window about her dissatisfaction with the internet shutdown, which was the reason for her live broadcast being turned off. The girl met the gaze of her older brother and Dr. Lu, who did not know what to say in such a situation. She immediately closed the window and immediately wrote to her brother that he had been kidnapped by aliens, and Su Nan at that moment remembered that he had completely forgotten about the internet. Here Fong Lin appeared, who herself agreed to explain everything to our hero's younger sister. He immediately saw his girlfriend's bandaged hand and asked about it, but the girl did not want to talk about it. She decided that the first thing to do was to calm down Xin Er, and Su Nan completely entrusted this to her. Lost in his own thoughts, the guy followed his girlfriend with an intense gaze. The third day of our team's survival had arrived. The main character lay and reviewed the list of spells in his arsenal and found a primary deformation in a goat, which he considered unnecessary. Xiao Xiao was looking at something on the tablet. Yu Yu and Gu Xiaoming were sorting things out again, and our hero was thinking that, fortunately, there was no monster activity, thanks to the team's preparation, and wondered whether the communist paradise had already arrived. Lu Jinai and Fong Ling came to invite all their friends for dinner. Since everyone was already tired of only eating fast food for 3 days in a row, today they bought hot shrimp for their friends. Fong Ling also took care of Xin Er and also sent her food, for which Su Nan was grateful to his friend. Lu Jinai started talking about how he didn't feel anything this morning, although many people reacted to the mysterious voice on the first day. He also informs the main character about the increase in the number of living creatures in the mountains, which is reported by people from the neighboring province, but the guy at this moment is thinking about Caesar's letter, which said that the gods sent many monsters to Earth. Events move to the kingdom of the gods, where a meeting is held to discuss the success of the invasion of Earth and plan to increase the level of intensity of action. Angel Guy reports that they underestimated the humans, so he investigates as quickly as possible. Once again we return to the group of friends, where Yu Yu is enjoying delicious food, and Xiao Xiao asks for more supplements. And for some reason our hero has no appetite, so Gu Xiaoming, sitting next to him, asks why the guy doesn't want to eat. The young man explained his behavior by saying that he always thought lobsters were strange. Meanwhile, Fong Ling came to Xin Er's room, which the girl was very happy about. She noticed that her friend still walks around with a bandage on her arm, so she has not yet become a professional, although she has already done everything from manicures to haircuts and even piercings, but nothing helps in the transformation process, so Fong Ling really thought about appendicitis. Su Nan decided to meet Zhongying Luo on the surface. The girl was late, but the main character did not wait long for her. The girl immediately got down to business and began to report that she had already sent all the available information to a group of friends, and also said that the Qianman agency wanted to start its activities and its management was already thinking about changing the name. The guy decided to ask if they had chosen a new one. Zhongying Luo answered her friend's questions in the affirmative, but it became interesting what name they chose. Feeling Spanish shame, the girl said a new name, namely the Huaxia Dragon Group, which our hero scoffed at, because he did not consider such a name for an organization to be serious. She also reminded that the guy is also a member of the club, so he can come and see everything for himself and meet quite experienced specialists. Su Nan agreed to drop by one day, thinking that it would be a good idea for him to meet other professionals. When, after the meeting, the guy walked around the city, he had the feeling that no disasters seemed to have happened in the world, because calm and peaceful life continued around him. Suddenly, someone called our hero as dad and started running in his direction, but Su Nan immediately realized who it could be, so he tensed up. Song Xiaoqing clung to the legs of the main character, sobbing because he was left completely alone in this world, and the main character was still trying to explain that he had no relationship with the guy's mother, so he could not be his dad. It turns out that Song Xiaochen only came running to beg for more than $10,000 from his new dad, which Su Nan was not at all happy about. A crowd of spectators gathered around this family drama, watching the boys try to divide their mother's property. In order not to further embarrass himself around people, our hero decided to agree to the conditions of his so-called son. Su Nan smiled and threatened Song Xiaocheng that if he missed his mother, he could send his son to her. Song Xiaocheng panicked at such words, and the guy promised that it would definitely not hurt. A second later he was no longer on the horizon, he was running away, justifying it with important matters. Su Nan, meanwhile, became interested in why Song Xiaochen was so dexterous, and mentally the guy decided to return to prison after lessons. After some time, he teleported to his ship, located in the dungeon. Immediately, he noticed a message on the screen indicating an enemy invasion, and asked the computer what he should do in such a situation. The ship's voice explained to the guy that it was a dog head, and the magical pet and Gu Xiaoming had already gone to the breakthrough site. The guy ordered the ship to jump in order to quickly go to the aid of his friends. Meanwhile, a stubborn struggle continued on the battlefield. Xiao Xiao confidently defended himself against the monsters. The nurse burned the dog head with the help of her powerful magical powers. The bear furiously scattered the monsters in different directions, because he did not want to allow the animals to reach her height. Su Nan arrived at the battle site, and the computer began to tell him about the monsters abandoned by the gods of prosperity, which were eaten by the Huaxia people, and about the monsters abandoned by the demons, who were not harmed at all. The guy asked the machine why the monsters appeared exactly when he left the subway, to which he received the answer that they were simply lost because they did not have night vision. Having received enough information, our hero decided to start the battle and kill all the monsters for daring to set foot on his territory. Gu Xiaoming was panicking, so in a hurry, instead of casting spells that would damage her enemy, she began to heal them. Xiao Xiao was embarrassed by his partner's behavior, so he yelled at her, and tried to justify himself by being nervous. Suddenly, someone took the nurse by the shoulder. It was Su Nan, who came to help his friends. Suddenly, several armed dog-headed warriors immediately attacked the young man. For defense, the main character concentrated and decided to use the fire hand spells. At this moment, the guy receives a daily quest, which consists of using the spell battle without pleasure 20 times and the spell, I didn't want to do it 10 times, but Su Nan was unhappy with the suddenness of the task. Due to the fact that the guy was distracted by the mission, one of the monsters almost hit him with his weapon. The main character immediately launched a counterattack using a fiery hand and neutralized his opponent. He realized that the situation was quite difficult, so he needed to push himself. Gu Xiaoming used the web spell to make it easier for our hero to destroy the monsters. The guy deftly jumped out from behind the girl, swinging his magic staff to strike. He started hitting the dog-headed monsters on the head using a spell. I didn't want to complete my task. The miracles were frightened by such skill and strength from our hero, and began to look for their lair, because they really were just lost. Suddenly, one of the dog heads, running away, collided with something large, white and fluffy. The monsters were unlucky because it was the enraged Xiao Xiao who had no intention of letting them go. Meanwhile, in the active war zone, Gu Xiaoming used the magic rope spell to tie up all the enemies. The girl warned Su Nan that her strength was on the verge, so he needed to speed up. The main character skillfully handled weapons and quickly eliminated the monsters, for which he received death points. The guy was already covered in blood, but all he could think was that he liked the battle and the feeling of disgust had disappeared, so he believes that he has now become a pervert. Su Nan noticed another unfinished monster running away from him in tears, and decided to choose him as a victim for the sake of his mission. While running away, the dog had stepped on the pitchfork, causing its handle to rise and hit our poor hero, who was running behind, in the groin area. In the first seconds of the incident, the guy did not utter a word, did not even squeak in pain. But then a piercing cry, filled with pity and despair at such an injury, echoed across the battlefield. Su Nan stood on his knees and, trembling in pain, begged for help, and meanwhile Gu Xiaoming watched the guy's suffering and agreed to help him. Even in such a situation, the main character apologized for dropping the last dog-headed one. Stunned by a series of his own failures, the young man lay down on the floor and burst into tears, releasing all his emotions. Of course, He immediately turned to his friend Dr. Lu, who advised the guy not to show off in close combat anymore, and Su Nan was worried that his injury would not cause complications. Remembering the complications, the doctor became more serious and decided to have a few discussions with the main character. Lu Jin-yi admitted that he lacked the strength to convert people into professionals and therefore he simply cut out Shifang Ling's appendix. Su Nan, stunned by this news, asked if this operation really took place. The doctor explained that this was precisely why they rose to the surface, and noted that the whole process took place in the hospital room of an old friend, Lu Jin-yi, and Fang Ling herself did not mind. The guy thought about the reason why his girlfriend could not become capable, and about the differences between them that prevent this process. Lu, meanwhile, suggested performing an operation on Fang Ling's spleen, because in principle it does not play an important role. The nurse immediately rejected this idea and forbade cutting out this organ, because the doctor's statements were wrong. Su Nan noted that these operations would still not help in the process of becoming capable. In his thoughts, Lu Jin suspected that Gu Xiaoming was definitely hiding something from everyone. He turned to his assistant and asked her opinion about the ban on cutting out the spleen, because one cannot remain silent about such important information. Lu decided to put pressure on the girl, so he threatened to cut out her kidney, but the nurse was nervous, but did not admit to anything. Still, she decided to tell the available information that when Gu Xiaoming became capable, she received a prediction from the oracle of the spirit of love and young girls. The girl asked him the reason for transforming people, to which he replied that it was all about people staying in Lu Jin-yi's clinic for too long. Fang Ling just arrived, having heard the whole conversation and learned that it was only in the hospital. Lu expressed the problem that one of his disgruntled patients had vandalized his clinic. He assumed that she and her dad knew much more, and still wanted to find out the secret of the capable. Lu Jin-yi ordered Su Nan to rest after his injury, and he decided to go to the clinic with Fang Ling. The main character wondered if there were still similar places in the hospital and the number of capable people around the world. Gu Xiaoming suddenly became indignant that everyone had deceived her, but Su Nan emotionlessly noted that she was not the only one who had suffered here, and the main deceivers had already left. The nurse panicked because the oracle had given orders to keep this information secret, but she just let it slip. She again asked our hero to marry her, but he refused because Gu Xiaoming's mission is only her problem. He ran away from the girl faster because he was in a hurry to the 1000 Peak Society, and promised to talk upon his return. The guy went on a journey to the society and finally arrived at his destination. According to the address provided by Zhang Luo, Su Nan found the right building. The main character entered this house and immediately saw a lot of people and a decorated interior. As soon as the guy crossed the threshold, someone immediately called him. It was a short old man who handed the guy a piece of paper and invited him to familiarize himself with the ensemble. Because of the mention of the ensemble, Su Nan concluded that all the people there were bards and wondered if he needed to see it. There he met a young man in uniform who led the audience to the performance viewing area. All the people were brought into a spacious hall. At this moment, the main character began to think about why he came here in the first place. Meanwhile, the first members of the ensemble began to appear on stage. Most of them were sitting with instruments, but the young man warned that they needed to wait for more spectators to start the concert. The guy analyzed that all the musicians were quite experienced bards. He saw that the entire ensemble had instruments from the world of Pulo, and did not understand how this was possible. The first to perform was the bard Mr. Lu, who was going to introduce the youth to beautiful melodies. His music immediately affected Su Nan, so the guy received additional positive effects. The presenter began to tell that Mr. Lu is the best specialist of the 1000 Spade Society in the field of studying the craft of bards. The musician himself creates music that gives unsurpassed results. Our hero mentally noted that, most likely, this bard is above level 10, and praised the 1000 Spade Society for so many good specialists, and meanwhile the audience in the hall was carried away by the music. After what he saw, Su Nan realized that the statement about the uselessness of bards was wrong. Then another person started playing an interesting string instrument. Immediately a negative atmosphere was created in the hall, because the music of this bard imposes negative effects. The main character felt that the emotional state of everyone around him was under threat, so he does not understand who came up with the idea about the helplessness of bards. After the end of the magic concert, the guy, along with other spectators, left the hall. It turned out that not far from the venue of the performance someone was waiting for the guy. It was Zhang Yingluo, who happily greeted her friend and asked how the bard's concert went. She asked whether Su Nan now wanted to become a member of the Thousand Spade Society, and noted that a serious test was ahead, but the guy unconditionally agreed to join. He thought about whether other members of the organization also had such a powerful level, but realized that he could only find out after joining, but one way or another, if the guy was a member of them, he could benefit the world. But the main character had a condition that he would not enter into the role of a bard. He confessed to Zhang Yingluo that his ability actually lay in being a member of Master Luan's class. With a smile on her lips, the girl noted that this was possible. The form would need to be changed a little. She invited Su Nan to go with her to register and explained that the society now needed employees because they were planning to open a new department. On the way, Su Nan thought that, most likely, his friend knew about the lie about the bard, and meanwhile she said that now the organization has one important mission, because a dragon was discovered in Lake Ri Wu Yen. Zhang Yingluo explained that if the formalities were quickly over, the guy would have a good opportunity to fight with the society members side by side, and the young man remembered the girl's ability to fight. Inadvertently, Zhang Yingluo asked about her younger sister, and this question took the main character by surprise, so he did not know what to answer. At this time, Su Nan comes up with a new task that requires the young man to get another person's activity points, and he decides to do this with one of his enemies, because it will be even more interesting. Zhang Yingluo annoyedly told the guy to finish, and he, confused by the new task, quickly came up with a lie that Yu was a thief and difficult to keep track of. The friend believed Su Nan, so she hurried to begin the formal procedures. In his thoughts, the guy thought that it looked like he would need a disgusting appearance this December. The friends reached their destination, where our hero had an interview with the head of the society, and then a medical examination and sending to a training camp. The guy dutifully asked his girlfriend to take him to the right place, to which she happily agreed, because she wanted to thank Su Nanya for her help. Zhang Yingluo also explained that her position does not allow her to give tasks to subordinates, but now, by attracting a young man to work, she has fulfilled the last condition for promotion. Meanwhile, the main character was thinking about the difficulty of working as a manager, because it is such a headache. After going through all the stages of recruitment, Su Nan boarded the bus. He called Qin Yu to notify his friend that her older sister was looking for her, but she explained that even her mother already knew everything and came from abroad, so the girl was going to meet her at the airport. The guy offered his help, but Yu refused and said that she would build with her mother for a day or two and then return. The girl irritably explained that she would not be against her mother meeting her friend, but the woman would immediately begin to match them up. Since the main character was convinced that his girlfriend was doing well, he returned to the underground city. Su Nan researched during his time in the dungeon that mechanical spirits work much worse than living creatures and can only perform simple tasks, but, for example, imps work fruitfully and multiply quickly, therefore they are much more efficient. He also decided to try a higher-level artifact, but did not know what to choose from his arsenal. He found a scheme for creating an inflatable doll of the 13th type, the materials for which were quite cheap, so the young man chose it. The main character concentrated and, using magical energy, began synthesizing the artifact. The outline of an object began to appear in the air and Su Nan realized that everything was ready. The process of creating an inflatable doll was completed, but the guy noticed that it looked rather strange. She started moving on her own and fell to the floor, and the guy tried to stop her. The doll headed towards the door, our hero shouted after her, but she didn't pay attention. She moved to the street where Xiao Xiao was standing, looking at his tablet as always, and Su Nan was asking the bear for help with his fugitive. The companion laughed at his owner, but he was not happy with such jokes and ran further after the doll, which had already flown far away. The main character was worried that no one would see this shame, so he decided to deal with the fugitive using magic. He took aim and tore the inflatable doll to shreds with a burst of energy. Xiao Xiao noted that the guy's girlfriend had burst, but he asked his magical pet to forget about this incident. Its appearance has changed and now it is an inflatable panda, which, although it cannot fight, is useful on the farm. The bear noted that he decided to change his name to Atten, so his new friend will be called Inflatable Atten, but the owner did not understand the reason for the name change. The panda shyly explained that one beauty said that his fur was beautiful and soft, like meat in soup, but Su Nan thought the idea was stupid. A new day has come and someone has been annoyingly calling our hero on his phone since the very morning. The guy sleepily answers the call. It turns out that it is Yu, who reports that her mother wants to see Su Nan. He was surprised, because before the girl had expressed her reluctance to meet, but now she has no choice, because her mother does not want to let her in. The friend asks Su Nan to dress in the most disgusting way possible, and she will wait for him in the main square. The main character is dissatisfied with such darkness, but what can you do for a friend, so he, dressed tastelessly, stood at the indicated place and waited for Yu. Suddenly he hears his girlfriend calling him love. The girl clings to his hand and joyfully says that mom will kill Su Nan. He is surprised and does not understand whether he and the girl really have some kind of secret relationship. Yu begs the guy to pretend to be her date, since she already told her mom everything. Su Nan begins the performance and says that the head of the underground city cannot enter into such a relationship. Yu explains that because of her long stay in the dungeon, she had to lie to her mother about extra classes, but she didn't believe her and had to say that the girl had a date and her mother didn't believe her again, so she thinks that her daughter still doesn't matured. Our hero did not understand what this whole story was about, but his friend explained to him that the mother would recognize the girl as an adult only if she found a rich guy. The friend's conversation is interrupted by a woman's voice coming from behind Chin Yu. This is the girl's mother, who asks if her daughter's boyfriend is really standing in front of her. She approached and began to meticulously examine the fake guy, and meanwhile Yu stood and was nervous because of the unexpected meeting. My mother liked the guy because he was tall and handsome, and she did not expect any other choice from her daughter. It turned out that Yu even told that Su Nan owns a large company. The woman also knew that our hero had a panda living at home, but the guy tried to get out of it by saying that it was just a coincidence. The mother looked at the guy with a serious look from under her glasses for a few more seconds. As a result, she had a positive assessment of the young man and was not afraid to leave her daughter with him, so she went to the airport. She gestured to Yu that she liked everything and left, and Su Nan couldn't believe that his mother just trusted him. The girl explained this by what she had previously said about her imaginary boyfriend belonging to a rich family, and also by the fact that her mother and aunt had already despaired of finding a match for Jin Yu. A friend suggested that the main character go for a walk, because they had already met. Next, events moved to the hut of Xiao Sanbao, now the leader of Su Nan in the Thousand Peak Society. The man explains to his ward that in 3 days the guy will go to training camp and should not disappoint his boss. Mentally, our hero understands that Xiao Sanbao is a celebrity who left the scene several years ago, but does not understand at what point the man became a member of the society. The guy decided to ask his teacher about an unknown place called a training camp. The husband reassures his student and explains that there is nothing special about him, because this is only a place for training, and the guy himself will find out everything at the right time. Suddenly, Xiao Sanbao decided to ask how the guy was able to reach level 3, but he did not want to say that he did it through shame-related tasks, but the teacher did not even let him say a word and noted that Su Nan looked like an unusual person. The man decided that there were no secrets between mentor and student, so he asked whether the increase in level was associated with emotional turmoil. Many of the capable, before awakening blood kinship, experienced severe emotional shock, for example, the death of loved ones, love, or severe pain. Xiao Sanbao explains that their department has many ways to speed up the awakening process, namely racing, dancing, coal walking, ice testing, but Su Nan did not appreciate such leisure time. But the teacher assured the young man that everything was happening safely and within the law. He summed up his story by saying that the task of awakening worthy abilities is long and difficult, and wished the newcomer good luck. The next day, the main character received a message that a second portal to the Lost Paradise had opened and a strong impulse from underground had been detected. The guy immediately went in search of adventure, and when leaving he was thinking that he needed to raise the level and find good equipment, so he needed to find a more difficult dungeon. Su Nan was congratulated upon entering the second portal to the Lost Paradise and warned that a blood relationship bond spell had been cast on his body, and asked if he was ready to accept it. But our hero does not understand what they are talking about. When suddenly Song Xiaochen pops up, that is, we are talking about a connection with the so-called son of the main character. The guy stands in shock, because now one of his greatest fears could come true. Su Nan began to run away from his potential relative, but he ran after him and told him that he had just run out of money, so there was no money to pay for the apartment. After some time, Song Xiaochen, with several bumps on his head, sat humbly and asked about the place they were in. Then he saw the skeletons and thought that there was some kind of curse here, but Su Nan explained that they were on the border of the worlds and our hero came here to restore order. The guy asked Song Xiaochen not to yell, because spirits don't like that, so the acquaintance was even more scared. He asked his so-called father to bring him back because there was a girl waiting for the guy. Su Nan explained that Song Xiaocheng would only be able to leave here once the curse was lifted. As it turned out, the guy also understands magic, so he explained that the blood relationship bond spell is not terrible. Our hero realized that this fool was secretly studying magic, so he asked if it really was witchcraft. To put more pressure on Song Xiaochen, he called his companion to hit the guy on the head if he remained silent. The first question from Aiden was why Song Xiaochen was sitting naked, and meanwhile the guy was afraid of meeting a huge panda. The acquaintance began to beg Su Nan to trust him, because this would be just a simple transformation. Song Xiaochen said that he didn't expect that our hero was also a druid, and explained that at a low level, you can only transform into a goat. The main character ordered the guy to transform at least once, even though he wanted to turn away from him, but Su Nan gave an ultimatum that the guy wouldn't get out of here without transforming. Song Xiaochen promised to transform, but begged the guy to return him home later. He actually turned into a goat and asked if he looked bad. Su Nan appreciated the look of the druid, but most of all he liked how the guy's underwear sat on the goat. Song Xiaochen began to yell and demand to be sent back. Our hero agreed and let the injured guy go. Su Nan received 3,000 activity points and noted to his companion that the girls would die of fear from such a place. After a while, spirits began to appear, but the guy mistook them for peaceful creatures, so he did not want to destroy them. The guy received a message that the dungeon has opened and he is invited to the 12th anniversary of the head of the buried village, where our hero must present a bright performance, for which he may have the opportunity to inherit the gift of necromancy. The bear did not understand where his master was going, because the task was not visible to him. The guy asked if his magical companion could split stones with his chest, but the panda still didn't understand anything. But their conversation was interrupted by a scary masked creature who greeted the heroes at the anniversary celebration. Having examined it better, Su Nan noticed that it was something similar to the skeleton of a bird. The spirit explained that the guests needed to be with others capable of performing in the center of the village, and the leader and captain of the patrol team would choose the winner. The main character was surprised because he didn't expect that there were others capable here besides him. Very soon Aden was already on stage, where he was introduced to the village residents. It seems that everyone immediately liked the cute bear, despite the fact that there are only scary spirits here. Aten promised that he would do anything for his master, which greatly touched Su Nan. The bear concentrated on his next trick. The magical companion confidently did the splits, which did not surprise the audience at all. The main character also did not understand how to react to such an unsuccessful performance. Unfortunately, all the judges unanimously gave poor Pundi a 0, which greatly embarrassed Su Nan. The bear did not understand that his performance was really so bad and no one appreciated his efforts. The main character calmed his companion and offered to throw the daggers next time, but their conversation was interrupted by another capable one. This man promised that victory would definitely be his, but the guy was angry and could not understand what was wrong with their opponent. The man walked onto the stage to begin the next challenge and was greeted with thunderous applause. His performance consisted of demonstrating the skill of throwing daggers, so there was a wooden circle on the stage with a spirit attached to it. The main character noted that zombies cannot die, so the meaning of risk and admiration for the performance is lost. Another dead man came on stage and helped spin the wheel to incredible speed. The man took the daggers in his hands, concentrated and took aim to perform a difficult trick, after which he threw all the knives that were between his fingers. The first daggers hit around the zombie's head, causing it to panic. The latter fell into the area of the spirit's feet. As a result, the master managed to hit all the daggers along the contour of his assistant's body and never hit the spirit itself, which made the crowd delighted. The judges also appreciated the man's performance, so they gave him fairly high scores. From the stage, the potential winner met the main character. A mocking smile appeared on the man's face, and confidence was visible in his eyes. Su-nan realized that their opponent was very confident of his victory and wondered if he could have been farming bones in Selly Kostok before. The guy noticed that the man approached the judges and started talking to the boss, so our hero became interested in what they were talking about. For some reason, the boss was very surprised by the capable man's proposal, but the man insisted on his position. Suddenly the spirit turned to all residents to inform them about the change in the competition, which consisted in the fact that some unknown action would replace the final performances of the participants. All the peasants began to whisper, and our hero did not understand what kind of competition we were talking about. Suddenly, Su-nan and Aten were picked up by some force, lifting them into the air and changing the landscape around them. Our heroes and their rivals were taken to another location for further competition. The guy wanted to understand what kind of installation was in front of them and what the task was. The man did not panic one bit, but continued to behave confidently and smile. Round 2 involves the contestants helping Sel Kostok figure out a grave robbing case, much to the surprise of the protagonist, who had been hoping the accused wouldn't be a sick scumbag. The chief sat on the throne and announced the beginning of the trial of the 19-year-old grave robbery. He explained that in recent years many remains had disappeared from the village's graves and all reports pointed to one necromancer. The spirit ordered the accused magician, who communicates with the world of the dead, to be taken out. It seems this is not the first time this has happened to this sorcerer, because he mutters displeasedly that the villagers are bored again, so he is forced to dig up some bones in the cemetery. A bone falls out of the man's pocket, and he continues to complain that anyway, these corpses never turned into spirits, and the bones were taken for study. Suddenly, someone from the crowd of skeletal peasants recognizes his thigh in the just fallen bone. The spirits immediately rebelled, began to scream and curse the necromancer. The man argued his actions by saying that the village of bones is called a paradise for both spirits and necromancers, but what kind of paradise is it for him if he cannot explore anything? Su-nan puzzles over this problem, because the order is essentially a death sentence for the second round. As a result, it became clear that the accused had fully confessed to his crimes. Our team's opponent exclaimed that Kostok village is the homeland of all spirits, so the mage's robberies caused serious harm and he is a thief. He turned to the judge and noted that the situation was quite obvious, so the necromancer's verdict must be passed. The judge turned to a lawyer in the form of Su-nan, who decided that he would try his best. The man was interested in how his opponents would turn the situation in their favor, but meanwhile the lawyer asked whether the situation was as serious as the defense claimed. Our hero proposed a version that the remains were once corpses and begged the necromancer to take them for research, so consent is not a crime. The opposite side thought this was funny, because the bones had not yet become spirits and could not contact the magician. Su-nan explained this by saying that his client knows how to combine corpses with intelligence, so he experiences their emotions, and heard that they were trapped underground, which is why they begged for freedom. The opponent counterattacked this with the fact that bones have no emotions, but forgot that all the inhabitants are around this skeleton. The guy asked if his opponent could prove that the client did not have the ability to combine hearts and minds. The main character also accused his rival of lack of soul and immorality. The magical companion noticed that his master was using high-level skills to win this argument. The husband still could not understand, in his opinion, the stupid logic of the defendant's defense lawyer. Voices began to be heard from the crowd who wanted to drop the charges against the necromancer, which is why our hero's opponent was incredibly annoyed. The villagers thought Su-nan was right, because he pointed out that they all have a soul. The man decided to remind him that the magician took a thigh bone from one of the peasants. The skeleton justified this by saying that the necromancer had heard that his leg suffered from arthritis, so he helped get rid of it. The man did not understand how it was possible to convince the residents to change their minds so quickly. The accused, in turn, was annoyed that he was now wasting his time. The judge found the necromancer not guilty and closed the case, announcing this with a blow of the gavel. There was a hubbub, because no one understood why things so quickly turned into a completely different direction. Aten was surprised and could not that Su-nan was able to use his fool ability against everyone around him. But the guy noted that he could not use this skill against the boss, but their opponent got too played and forgot that such an easy matter could not last 19 years. Our hero also had guesses that someone was helping their opponent, so he took the risk. The bear was carried away by his master, because he himself would never have thought of such a plan. At this time, a spirit approached the main character, telling him that the village headman wanted to talk to the guy. He came to the house where the main spirit of the village was waiting for him. The chief immediately thanked the guy for protecting Quian. Handing out the box with the reward, the headman noted that not all peasants could be satisfied with his actions. Meanwhile, our hero had the idea that he had never realized that the necromancers had a back door. The open box contained a bloodline fruit that awakens partial necromancer abilities. There was also a small tombstone there, so Su Nan asked the elder what it was for, and he replied that with its presence, all the corpses in the cemetery would be loyal to the owner of the amulet. The guy's first idea was the thought of several hot zombie maids, but Ethan did not appreciate this crazy idea at all. The main character decided that he would gain a lot from necromancy, so he began to absorb the bloodline fruit. A message immediately appeared that announced the awakening of the meridians of the touch of the deceased, the summoning of the ghoul and the spiritual body. After all the adventures, Su Nan decided to return to university. He received a message on his phone about the temporary compulsory residence of students in dormitories, so an important announcement will be made within a week. The guy guesses that, most likely, the Millennium Splendor Guild will soon manifest itself, and the registration that Zhang Luo mentioned will be launched throughout the country. Su Nan went to the dormitory where he had not lived for a long time. He opened the door and immediately affably asked his neighbors about the state of affairs. The guy saw that they had hot stew, so he was incredibly happy about this surprise. Su Nan's friend hugged him and told him that they didn't add anything spicy because our hero doesn't like it, and were only waiting for their neighbor to start the meal. The friends sat down at the table to finally eat and began friendly conversations about life. Meanwhile, the main character decided to analyze whether there were professionals among them, but it turned out that none of the guys had superpowers. The long-haired guy asked Su Nan if he knew anything about the 125th, because he had to do it while he was here. Our hero didn't know anything about this, so the young man explained that on December 5th all the guys were going to stream. Su Nan did not want to go there, considering it a shame, but the guys explained that it was a protest against the policy of limiting the internet after 11 p.m. He wanted to invite his friends not to go ahead, but they immediately explained that they had already told the media about their protest, so there was no turning back. Obviously, the main character at this time received the task of joining the 125th protest, and he himself guessed about this mission. Su Nan noticed that the quests began to double the shame to seduce the guy. Therefore, due to the circumstances, our hero agreed to help his friends, which is why they were happy. The next day, someone woke up the inhabitants of the room with a loud knock on the door, and this person was talking about some news. Su Nan is angry that he was woken up because the profession registration is scheduled for the afternoon, but the student outside the door said that the group wrote down the location of the event, namely the theater. The guy went on to notify students in another dormitory, and our hero thanked him for the information. Su Nan's long-haired friend was stunned by something and told the guy to go to the Millennium Gleam website. As it turned out, there was an announcement on the website about the nationwide registration of occupation and that non-combatants are unwelcome. The guy read that this should be officially announced on the news at 7 p.m., and also that there was a press release. A curly-haired guy came down from the second floor of his bed and asked his friends what profession they would like for themselves from the list available on the website. He began to argue that a magician requires too much, and one of the guys clarified that the website for this profession requires a lot of charisma. The curly-haired guy got angry at his friend, because he thought that he was making fun of him. The right time has come and all the students have already arrived at the entrance to the theater. Su Nan stood in the crowd and listened to the girls behind him happily discussing who would get what profession, and the guy himself thought that they were treating this like an online game. Suddenly he notices a girl who stands apart from everyone and watches the students from afar. The main character decided to ask his friend who this girl was and what her specialty was. As it turned out, her name is Jiang Yuanqi and she is a sophomore. A friend said that there were rumors about the girl being withdrawn and having an abortion, which is why she took a break and then enrolled in this class. Then they started telling gossip that this student had killed her boyfriend with a baseball bat, when suddenly the girl looked displeased in the direction of the guys. The process of determining professions began and the man in uniform reported to the students that he had become the first registered professional, namely a powerful spellcaster. The guys realized that this was the same girl they had just been actively discussing. She confidently walked out of the theater building, and the man called the next person. Jian Yalanchi decided to test her powers and tried to perform the first spell. A message appeared above the students, saying that the girl did not have a boyfriend and did not have an abortion, and the reason for missing 1 year was only her personal matter. Su Nan's friend appreciated the girl's ability to create fireworks, but our hero, as an experienced professional, did not appreciate the way it was used. Meanwhile, another friend called the young man to the entrance of the theater, because it was Su Nan's turn. He entered with a long-haired guy and together they witnessed how someone resisted and tried to escape from the hands of the employees. It turned out that the guy with glasses who talked about his achievements at school was being taken somewhere because he did not pass the profession selection. Another guy was happy that he was a ranged warrior and all his training with javelin throwing was not in vain. Su Nan noted that all the students around him looked excited. Suddenly, his teacher Xiao Sanbao stands in front of the guy, rejoicing at meeting his student. He asked the main character to come closer to him. Su Nan's friend was surprised that the guy knew Xiao Sanbao, and meanwhile the teacher decided to ask if the main character was ready for today's training camp and revenge for disrespect for their profession, but our hero was not in a particular mood. Su Nan asked his mentor to let his friends know that the guy was a professional to simplify the situation, to which Xiao Sanbao replied that the guy could rely on him and noted that he also had a request. The teacher asked the guy to tell the girl with the fireworks to remove her charms, because the crowd at the entrance that had gathered to watch was complicating everything, but the guy got nervous because he didn't know that student. The mentor suggested that Su Nan use his abilities and he agreed to fulfill the request. The guy walked out onto the street where Jiang Yuanqi was standing and nervously greeted the girl. The main character began to introduce himself and tell who he was, but suddenly his interlocutor grabbed his hand. Jiang Yuanqi thought that Su Nan had approached her to take her away from here, but there was a misunderstanding between them. The student, with a serious expression on her face, ordered our hero to behave naturally, remain silent and walk with her. The guy was dissatisfied with all the students around and asked the girl why she didn't leave here earlier. Jiang Yuanqi explained this by saying that she scolded all the students for spreading rumors and now she was inconvenient to leave on her own. In his thoughts, Su Nan thought that at least he had fulfilled the request from his teacher. Then the guy made a remark to the girl about the pronunciation of his surname. The student called him Su Yunan and noticed that the main character had a rather strange name, and the guy was simply silent. Night fell, and Su Nan, as expected, was on the university grounds. He walks through the corridors of the educational institution, where propaganda posters are hung everywhere on boards. Our hero entered the desired audience, where other students were already waiting for him. It turned out that people would be gathered in this office to hold a training camp for spellcasters. Su Nan met his old acquaintance Song Xiaocheng, but in the class everyone was embarrassedly silent and did not communicate with each other. The first to start the conversation was Song Xiaochen, who was proving to some girl that she was very similar to the guy's sister. He complained that his sister died and he missed her incredibly. Song Xiaochen says that he and this girl were destined to be in the same class because she looks like his relative, and the main character thinks that in 80% of cases, it was the blood connection that made the guy the main character's classmate. Su Nan praised his so-called son, who was overjoyed when he noticed his father. But then Song Xiaochen became confused because he didn't understand what the main character was doing in the training camp. The guy pretended that he didn't know Su Nan and asked not to interfere with his sister, and our hero began to mock his friend and said that he was glad to see familiar faces. Suddenly, a man with a box entered the classroom, immediately attracting the attention of all the students in the room. He introduced himself as Zhang Yu, the head instructor of the training camp, and said that he had been with Pro World and was now a level 10 caster. The mentor decided to speak without further ado, so he explained that today, on the reporting day, they would do 3 things. The first is a test to determine the profession and direction of study, the second is an explanation of the action plan for the 40 days of the camp, and the third is the distribution of educational materials. The strong young man confidently volunteered to help Zhang Yu distribute textbooks to all the students. A capable guy used magic to summon many little fairies. The magical creatures each took a book and began scattering around the classroom to distribute teaching materials to each student. Su Nan watched the process in surprise, and the guy who did all this boasted because it was a test of his skills. But in fact, the teacher was angry, because magic is prohibited in theory classes, and this was stated in the instructions for writing reports and meetings provided to students. Su Nan was glad that he was not so stubborn, and Song Xiaocheng, meanwhile, read the instructions, where such a point was indeed indicated. One of the students raised her hand to ask instructor Zhang something. The girl asked what language the textbook was written in, heavenly or hellish, because she didn't understand anything. The teacher explained that this is African Swahili because this textbook contains an advertisement for a Swahili educational institution, and our hero was outraged that this had nothing to do with the training camp. Next, Zhang Yu moved on to a simple test that will be taken using the leaf of the world tree. For testing, the instructor distributed questionnaire forms to each student. After receiving them, the teacher began to study the information and asked Song Xiaochen if he was a magician or a druid, but the guy explained that he had a dual profession. The guy wanted to immediately show his ability to transform into a goat, and our hero was mentally glad that when joining the Qianman Club, he did not lie about his profession and did not have to pretend to be a druid. But Zhang Yu threatened that under the leaf of the Tree of Peace one should not resort to such methods of deception. The teacher then began to explain about personal files and training schedules that students could view for themselves, and Su Nan realized that he would need to train for 40 days as part of the camp. In his files, the main character saw something that greatly upset and surprised the guy.